Chapter 602. After the people of the drumming tribe left, the trading point was officially closed. Although there were still some Yanjia warriors guarding the trading point, it was no longer open to the public. They would be closed for the winter to prepare for an even bigger trading event in the coming year. Snow began to fall from the sky, but it was different from the storm-like winters they had experienced before. This winter was more normal. Perhaps after the disaster, the geographical environment changed, and the weather changed accordingly. After 2 strange and hot winters, this year, the people of the mainland finally welcomed a normal winter. Perhaps, in the forest further away, there were some warm places suitable for birds to live. However, the people of the mainland did not yearn for it. They did not have high expectations, and all they wanted was a normal winter. After Xiao Xian arranged everything in the trading point, he took the things he had on hand back to the tribe and began to polish the lenses. Transparent crystal was suitable for polishing lenses. Xiao Xian tried to make a simple telescope. In the other world, he used to make it for fun. Now, after so many years, in this world, Xiao Xian's memory was a little fuzzy. However, after a few more attempts, Xiao Xian believed that he could make it. The lens barrel was made of bamboo with different thicknesses. It was mainly divided into 3 parts, the front part, the middle part, and the back part. However, the most troublesome part was polishing the lens. After all, it was made by hand, so there would be many defects. If one did not pay attention, it would be worn out. Fortunately, Xiao Xian had been practicing for many years. Although he did not succeed on the first try, he still managed to get a satisfactory result after a few tries. The focal length of the lens was not known, so Xiao Xian roughly used the method of focusing light to determine it. Everything was done manually. When the lens, eyepiece, and lens were finally finished, and the front, middle, and back parts were made, Xiao Xian assembled them and made a simple telescope. Xiao Xian tried to see the situation on the other side of the river. With the eyesight of many totem warriors, they could also see the scene on the other side of the river. However, with the help of binoculars, they could see more clearly. Unfortunately, Xiao Xian was still not satisfied with the result of polishing the lens. The image was not clear enough. This set of lenses could be used to make ground-based telescopes with a variety of magnification factors. All that was needed was to adjust the length of the central tube accordingly. However, Xiao Xian still had to continue improving the telescope if he wanted it to be more useful. In the future, he might even try to make a large aperture telescope. During this time, Old Ku had shown interest in making binoculars. After trying it out with stones, he practiced polishing with small opaque pieces that were knocked off from crystal clusters. Finally, he started trying to make a lens. Xiao Xian had explained the general principles to him. Old Ku didn't understand them, but as long as he knew what to do to get the best results, he could start working. In terms of precision, Old Ku was still better than Xiao Xian when it came to stone crafting. While Xiao Xian and Old Ku were working on polishing lenses, the expedition team returned. The expedition team didn't return before the snow. However, although it was snowing now, it wasn't too cold. Other than a few places near the shore, the rest of the river wasn't frozen. Occasionally, they could even see fishes with sharp teeth jumping out of the water. The expedition team had a mission. Other than trading, they also spread the news of the Flaming River trading point so that more people would know about it. This was the first reason. The second reason was that the expedition team had also investigated the movements of various parts of the mainland. This time, they brought back some special news. Not long after the expedition team returned, someone came to call Xiao Xian to the mountain for a meeting. When Xiao Xian arrived, Ta, who had led the team, was already sitting inside and talking to Ao and the rest. "Xian, we've been waiting for you. Come in." "What's that in your hand?" the shamaness asked. Xiao Xian passed the monocular to the shamaness. "I made a new toy." Ta, who was talking about what he had seen along the way, couldn't help but look over. The shamaness took the monocular and looked around. "What's it for?" "It's for seeing far away. However, this is only my first experiment. It's not perfect yet and there are many areas that need to be improved. Xiao Xian explained as he taught the shamaness how to use the monocular. After listening to Xiao Xian's explanation, the shamaness was interested. She stopped talking about the meeting and got up to walk to the window. She lifted the thick animal skin covering the window and used the monocular to look outside. The hall was located near the top of the mountain. After the disaster, the mountain had grown a lot taller. It was the tallest mountain in the vicinity. Therefore, one could see the situation in the distance from here. The window that the shaman had opened allowed one to see the other side of the river. It's amazing! The shamaness exclaimed. Hearing this, the others couldn't sit still and wanted to come over to try. However, the shamaness kept the monocular and pressed her hand down. There's no rush. Let's talk about business first. After that, the shamaness closed the animal skin curtain and walked back to sit down. Before she could sit properly, the monocular was snatched away by the old lady beside her. However, the old lady maintained her composure and didn't immediately walk to the window to look. She studied the monocular for a while before grabbing it and placing it on her lap. The others looked away from the monocular in the old lady's hand. They suppressed their curiosity and started talking about business. Ta told everyone about the results of this trip. The expedition team also followed Xiao Xian's instructions and spread the news about the Flaming River trading point. However, what surprised him the most was the desert that Xiao Xian mentioned. Indeed, due to the disaster, the two continents were closer to each other. However, the closest place to each other was the desert. This made Xiao Xian wonder if the slave masters chose to settle down in the desert because they were waiting for this day. This time, I was at the trading point and heard some news. I'm sure everyone still remembers the slave masters and slaves that appeared when we fought with Wancher, right? Ta said with a serious expression, his eyes filled with suspicion. Yes, other than the ruler of the desert, Rock Hill City, there were also the defeated slave masters and slaves that were forced out of the desert by Rock Hill City. These people brought their slaves and wandered around. After destroying Wancher, Xiao Xian also heard some news about them. These slave masters didn't have a good time against the tribesmen. They could only bully the people from the smaller tribes. If it was a battle between tribes, the other tribes wouldn't interfere. However, if the slave masters had the intention to rob someone, the central tribes wouldn't let them go. Hence, even if they were lucky enough to survive, these slave masters didn't have a good life. For the slave masters who had enjoyed a luxurious life, life was not good. Now that they heard that the two continents were close to each other, these slave masters who didn't have a good life wanted to sneak back into the desert and find a way to go to the other continent. Since they didn't have a good life here, they might as well go to another place. Maybe they could live a better life and regain their confidence. With such expectations, the slave masters who wandered around brought their slaves and sneaked back into the desert. Not long after, only a few seriously injured people came out of the desert. Every one of them looked terrified and spoke crazily, as if they had suffered a great shock. A travel team that passed by the desert met them and heard the news from them. Those people said that there were some monsters in the desert. Monsters in human form. Ta said in a low voice. Monsters in human form? Xiao Xian was puzzled. That's right. Those who were lucky enough to escape died not long after. It's said that none of the slave masters and slaves who entered the desert came out alive. No one knows what is happening in the desert now. Tower told him the information he had obtained during this long journey. Those monsters in human form, have they gone outside the desert? Xiao Xian asked. Ta shook his head. Never heard of it. The house fell silent as they pondered the authenticity of this news. Then should we be on guard? What if those people, monsters, come out? Duo Kong said. Maybe it's the people from Rock Hill City. Ao guessed. That's possible. If those monsters in human form are true, it's most likely related to Rock Hill City. However, Rock Hill City's main target is the other side of the sea. They shouldn't affect us in the short term. Xiao Xian said, instead of worrying about that, Why don't we use this opportunity to change the Flaming River region? Chapter 603. That's right. Zheng Luo nodded. Even if something happens in the desert, we can't do anything now. Why don't we use this opportunity to develop? We want to establish our position as the largest tribe in the Flaming River region. We don't have to worry about the desert. Even if something happens there, they'll fight their own battles and we'll do our own. The two shamans agreed. There's one more thing, the shaman said. After this winter, Yanjiao will have to make some changes. Xiao Xian knew what the shaman meant by changes. Actually, after the destruction of Wancher, the tribe had been looking for a chance to make changes. After all, a tribe couldn't have two chiefs and two shamans forever if they wanted to continue developing. After the division of power, the people in the tribe would feel divided. It would be hard to make a decision on anything. Now that the disaster was over, they were sure to live here for a long time. The new chief and shaman would be appointed soon. Of course, Guizhe would take over as the new shaman. Guizhe also participated in the high-level meetings of the tribe. In the past year, the two shamans had passed on most of the knowledge they wanted to impart to Guizhe. The rest would be left for Guizhe to experience on her own. As for the new leader, it was decided long ago that Guizhe would succeed him. Duo Kong and Ta would be the two main leaders. The two shamans and chief would step down and become elders like Xiao Xian. However, the Grand Elder would still be Xiao Xian. Because they were prepared, no one was surprised when the shaman said this. When winter ends and the trading point reopens, we will invite the tribesmen from the Flaming River region over. Then, everyone will know who the chief and shaman of Yanjiao are, Ao said. This was the result of Xiao Xian's discussion with them. When the trading point reopened, they would hold a banquet and invite the representatives of the tribes from the Flaming River region. In Ao's words, it was to let them feel the power of the flaming horns. As winter came, the temperature dropped. The ducks didn't come out of their sheds. The vegetable fields and animal pens were also protected. The green-faced fanged beasts went into hibernation again. The days passed. It was the coldest time of winter. It was still snowing. However, for the Yanjiao people who had experienced the stormy winter here, this was a rather mild winter. Even the children who had not awakened their totemic power could go out and play for a while. Many places on the Flaming River were covered in a layer of ice. Snow piled up on the surface of the ice, making the Flaming River look almost the same color as the land. In the upper reaches of the Flaming River, on a bank slightly further away from the Yanjiao tribe, a huge fearsome beast walked in the snow. It shook its long gray fur and shook off the snow on its body. Then, it raised its head and looked ahead. Even though it was far away, it could still smell the food coming from there. His crimson-red tongue stuck out and brushed past his sharp fangs. It lifted its feet and walked forward. The white snow was imprinted with the shape of a millstone-sized beast's claw. The white fog exhaled by the beast merged with the whiteness of the ground. Other than the sound of its footsteps on the snow, there was only the sound of its breathing. It was getting closer. It was getting closer. There was a lot of food ahead. It could even hear the sound of food. However, just as it was about to walk over, its body froze. There was a cracking sound under its feet. The beast felt a sense of danger and its fur stood on end. It stopped moving forward and turned to run. Unfortunately, it was still too slow. When it turned around, it used too much force and the thin layer of ice cracked. The cracks quickly spread to the surroundings. Large chunks of ice cracked and sank. The huge figure fell into the river. Splash! The splash of water broke the layer of snow on the surface of the ice. The beast's struggle made the ice crack even wider. Under the water, a group of hungry piranhas with mouths full of sharp teeth became agitated and started biting. Even though many of them were pulled out of the water and flapped their tails in the snow, they still opened their mouths and tried to bite something. The beast roared angrily, its voice echoing across the empty river. Although the river was frozen in winter, the temperature didn't make the layer of ice thick enough, especially in the middle of the river. It was dangerous even for humans to walk on it, let alone larger beasts. They could only walk a short distance before their weight broke the layer of ice. The beast was still struggling in the river. It waved its claws and many piranhas could be seen biting onto its skin. This was a common sight this winter. That was why even though the dangerous river was gone and the river was frozen, many beasts still couldn't break through the barrier. This made the rain and drumming tribesmen feel much more at ease. However, this was only the case in this part of the flaming river. If they went further upstream or downstream, would there be places with lower temperatures? Would the layer of ice be thicker? Would there be more beasts crossing the river from this side of the forest to the other side? They didn't know. The Yanjiao people rarely went out to hunt in winter. They would only occasionally send a group of people to guard the trading point. The river was frozen and ships couldn't travel, so they had Cha-Cha transport them by air. The two sides of the river weren't far apart anyway, so they could make a few trips back and forth. Xiao Xian had thought of making some transport by air, like gliders and hot air balloons. However, although there weren't continuous strong winds in winter, there would be some from time to time. No matter what, the safest way was to have Cha-Cha transport them by air. Xiao Xian spent most of his time at home polishing lenses with old Ku. Today, Xiao Xian was polishing lenses when someone came to report. The shaman of the drumming tribe is here. The shaman of the drumming tribe? Xiao Xian put down the things in his hands and asked the soldier. He didn't go up the mountain to look for the chief and shaman. He did, but he said he was looking for you, Grand Elder, said the soldier. Xiao Xian didn't know why the shaman of the drumming tribe was here at this time, so he asked for the location and walked down the mountain. Other than the meeting hall on the mountain, there was another one at the foot of the mountain. Most of the time, people from the other side of the river would meet there to discuss matters. At this time, the shaman of the drumming tribe was already waiting there. Before Xiao Xian walked into the stone house, he sensed something and looked up at the river. The shaman of the drumming tribe didn't come here on a raft because many parts of the river were frozen. He came here on a crocodile. Xiao Xian thought that the crocodiles would find a place to hibernate and wouldn't come out in this cold weather. He hadn't seen any crocodiles in the past few days. Most reptiles didn't like cold weather. He didn't expect there to be something special. On the surface of the river covered with a layer of snow, there was a long path in the middle of the river. A crocodile's head rested on the ice, facing this way. When Xiao Xian looked over, the crocodile's closed eyes opened. Although they were a little far away, Xiao Xian could still see the dark brown irises in its eyes. Looking away, Xiao Xian opened the door and walked into the stone house. In the house, the shaman of the drumming tribe was sitting by the fire, holding a shining crystal in his hand. That crystal wasn't a water moon stone, but a stone similar to water moon stones that Xiao Xian brought over from the other side of the sea. Chapter 604. Seeing the stone in the shaman's hand, Xiao Xian knew why he came. On the other side of the sea, Xiao Xian found traces of crocodiles in the forest. He also found many stones left by the crocodiles. He just wanted to check it out, but he didn't expect to find something useful. Unlike the water moon stone, which could only be used after absorbing Yangguang's power, Xiao Xian called it the water sun stone. At that time, Xiao Xian made a lot of water sun stones. When they crossed the sea, the people on the other side also brought the stones over. But after coming here, the water sun stone was more convenient and less expensive, so people used it more often. It should be the drumming tribe people who saw Yanjiao warriors using the water sun stone. Seeing Xiao Xian come in, the shaman of the drumming tribe looked away from the stone in his hand. He was quite excited. I took the liberty of coming here to ask Elder Xiao Xian, where did you get this stone? Xiao Xian thought for a moment and said, these stones were brought over from the other side of the sea. The shaman nodded. He already knew this. Elder Xiao Xian, can you tell me the origin of this stone in detail? Sure. Xiao Xian told the shaman about how he found the stone, but he didn't explain the process in detail. At that time, I just wanted to try. I didn't expect to succeed. Maybe it's because my power of inheritance is special. The shaman's expression was very subtle. He couldn't figure it out. He could understand finding a stone left by crocodiles in a distant place. After all, crocodiles weren't the only ones in the drumming tribe. There were groups of crocodiles in many places. But how did Xiao Xian, a Yanjiao man, make this stone? Wasn't it exclusive to the drumming tribe? But Xiao Xian wouldn't tell his secret. He could only say this. So, after staring at the stone in his hand for a while, the shaman said, "I don't know if you have more of these stones." After a pause, he added, "Stones left by unformed treasure fish." "Yes. Can I borrow?" Cough. The shaman of the drumming tribe suddenly remembered that his tribe had a huge debt. He hadn't paid it back yet, and now he had to borrow it again. However, this matter was different. He had to borrow it, or else he would keep thinking about it. "Sure, wait a moment." Xiao Xian went back and took one of the stones he brought back. When he decided to cross the sea, Xiao Xian brought a few raw stones with him. Since the shaman of the drumming tribe wanted to have a look, there was no harm in giving them one. Holding the stone that Xiao Xian handed over, the shaman of the drumming tribe carefully observed it. Although the shape was similar, he could feel that it was not left behind by the crocodiles of their tribe. There was a strange smell on it that they could recognize. However, they were closer to the crocodiles after all. Even though they knew that it was an unfamiliar aura, they did not reject it. "This. Can I borrow it for a few days?" The drumming shaman asked carefully. There was nothing he could do about it. In front of his creditor, he was always short of breath. "No problem." Xiao Xian did not mind. "Thank you." The shaman of the drumming tribe thanked him sincerely. Then, he carefully put the stone into his pouch. He thought of something and looked at Xiao Xian. "Elder Xiao Xian, you said that you changed the stone left behind by Baoyu?" "Yes." "You didn't use the power of the fire seed?" "I mean, you did it with your own ability?" "Yes." "How is that possible?" The shaman of the drumming tribe was puzzled. The drumming tribe only produced water moon stones when the moon was full. Under the stimulation of the fire seed, the stones would form in the water moon passage. But why would something like what Xiao Xian said happen? If they didn't see the stone that was different from the water moon stone, they wouldn't have believed it. Before leaving, the shaman of the drumming tribe asked a question. He didn't expect to get an answer, but he couldn't help but ask. "I didn't feel Yanjiao's fire seed. Did something happen?" Ever since the day they moved here from Yanjiao, the drumming tribe didn't feel any suppression or rejection from the fire seed. At first, they didn't notice it. At that time, the impact of the disaster was too great. Then, something big happened by the river. They didn't have time to think about anything else. Then, everything stabilized. It was terrifying. They couldn't feel the fire seed. Moreover, these Yanjiao people seemed to have changed since the first time they met them. They couldn't tell why, but they could feel that they were different from the first time they met the Yanjiao people. A tribe without a fire seed would become a wanderer. This was something everyone on the mainland knew. But now, they couldn't feel Yanjiao's fire seed. What was strange was that the Yanjiao people didn't lose their power. Instead, they seemed to be stronger. They were also more daring in their actions. For example, in the outer circle. "We're fine," Xiao Xian said. "As for the fire seed, it's not in the fire pit anymore." The shaman of the drumming tribe was confused. Not in the fire pit? He still didn't understand. If the fire seed isn't in the fire pit, where else could it be? Xiao Xian looked at him meaningfully. Then, he pointed at his forehead. "Here, Anne." He moved his hand to his chest and pointed at his heart. "Here." The shaman of the drumming tribe narrowed his eyes. He seemed to have thought of something, but he wasn't sure what it was. His mind was a mess. He could only vaguely feel something. After sitting in a daze for a while, the shaman of the drumming tribe suddenly woke up. He looked around. Xiao Xian had already left. He didn't know how long he had been sitting there alone. Someone poured a new cup of herbal tea on the table in front of him. But the tea was already cold. Someone had added more wood to the fire beside him. He didn't notice any of this. He was thinking about Xiao Xian's words just now. After moving his slightly stiff body, the shaman of the drumming tribe stood up. He touched the stone inside the pouch and walked out to the riverbank. There were Yanjiao warriors patrolling the riverbank. They stood on the watchtower and greeted the shaman of the drumming tribe. The shaman of the drumming tribe smiled in response. Then, he stepped onto the ice on the river. His footsteps were so shallow that they couldn't even be seen. He stepped on the ice step by step, making a soft creaking sound. The ice on the riverbank was slightly thicker. He didn't have to worry about the ice breaking. He walked until he reached the place where the crocodile was waiting. Before he stepped onto the crocodile's back, he turned around and looked in the direction of the Yanjiao tribe. As a shaman, he was more sensitive to the power of the fire seed. He could feel things that others couldn't. The Yanjiao fire seed was indeed gone. But this was only on the surface. He could feel the burning heat of the Yanjiao fire seed in places that people couldn't see. It was there, on that mountain, everywhere. Thinking back to what Xiao Xian said in the stone house, the shaman of the drumming tribe took a deep breath and stepped onto the crocodile's back. The back of the crocodile, which was more than 10 meters long, surfaced from the water. Its swaying tail left ripples in the water. Under the water, there were some unwilling piranhas wandering around, but they didn't come close. The shaman of the drumming tribe looked in the direction of his tribe. He was deep in thought. The Yanjiao people seemed to have chosen a different path. How would the drumming tribe choose? Chapter 605. Xiao Xian knew that the shaman of the drumming tribe would be able to guess the changes in the fire seed. As for his final decision, Xiao Xian didn't know. Not every tribe had the courage and determination to change. After all, to the tribesmen, anything related to the fire seed was related to the survival of their tribe. They couldn't be careless. The winter weather was still cold. In comparison, the Yanjiao people were the busiest in this area. Xiao Xian occasionally went to discuss matters with the chief and shaman after winter. He was still working on the trading point. The rest of his time was spent polishing lenses. It wasn't an easy job. Compared to Xiao Xian's calmness, the shaman of the drumming tribe hadn't slept well for 7 days after leaving Yanjiao. The shaman of the drumming tribe wasn't old, but his personality was similar to that of the Yanjiao shamans. He looked approachable, but in reality, he had a lot of thoughts. It was just that he didn't show it on the surface. It was because he thought too much that he felt conflicted. Every time he closed his eyes, he would think of many things. Things that had happened and things that hadn't happened yet. Sometimes, he would even break out in a cold sweat. With bloodshot eyes, the shaman of the drumming tribe called Fan Mu over to discuss the fire seed with Fan Mu. A few days passed. The drumming tribe was like a hibernating crocodile that rarely went out. It was very quiet. Everyone was too lazy to move in their own houses. Creak, the shaman of the drumming tribe walked out of the house with Fan Mu and a few other elders. The wood under their feet creaked when they stepped on it. The people who came out of the house all had a solemn aura. Even Yang Guang, who rarely came out in the winter, seemed much colder. Since we've decided, I'll go to Yanjiao with Fan Mu. The shaman of the drumming tribe looked across the flaming river and sighed. His worried gaze became determined. For thousands of years, the drumming tribe seemed peaceful, but there were many hidden dangers. The shaman and chief of the drumming tribe knew the dangers. Actually, 200 years ago, the shaman of the drumming tribe wanted to change, but he didn't know where to start because he didn't know how. And now, when they took over the leadership, they finally saw the opportunity. Therefore, on the 15th day after the shaman of the drumming tribe left Yanjiao, Xiao Xian met the shaman of the opposite tribe at the foot of the mountain again. At the same time, the chief of the drumming tribe, Fan Mu, was also there. Actually, Xiao Xian was also thinking about what decision the drumming tribe would make. No matter what they chose, they needed time to consider. But Xiao Xian didn't expect the people of the drumming tribe to make a decision in just 15 days. When Yang Sui of the Rain tribe learned about the fire seed, he had been thinking about it until now. He was still hesitating. After sitting down, the shaman of the drumming tribe spoke his mind about the fire seed. I hope Elder Xiao Xian can tell us more about it. Xiao Xian stared at the two people across the table for 2 seconds. He didn't keep them in suspense. The people of the drumming tribe preferred to be direct and decisive. They didn't like to beat around the bush, which was similar to Yanjiao. However, Xiao Xian didn't tell them about the change of the fire seed immediately. Instead, he explained some things first. They had to know about it sooner or later. On the other side of the sea, there are some slave owners. No, there are many slave owners. I believe you've heard about this from the warriors of Yanjiao. The shaman and Fan Mu of the drumming tribe nodded. Ever since they arrived from Yanjiao, there had been a lot of communication between the two tribes. Many things couldn't be hidden forever. Not everyone was so tight-lipped. If they talked too much, they might accidentally let the cat out of the bag. Moreover, there were people of the Rain tribe. Some of the people of the drumming tribe already knew that some people from Yanjiao came from the other side of the sea. There are also many tribes on the other side of the sea, but they are different from here. They don't have a fire seed. At this point, Xiao Xian noticed an inexplicable light flashing in the eyes of the two people across the table. A long time ago, the tribes on the other side also had a fire seed. They called it the primitive fire seed. But later, they all chose to merge the fire seed, which is what we do in Yanjiao today. After a pause, Xiao Xian continued, I can roughly guess your decision. But, for the sake of our friendship, there are some things I need to remind you of. The people of the Rain tribe knew about the fire seed long ago, but they didn't choose to change it because there were also difficulties in doing so. Tribesmen gathered together because of the fire seed, because the fire seed is everything. If the fire seed exists, the tribe exists. If the fire seed is extinguished, the tribe will die. But if there is no fire seed, even if the fire seed is not extinguished, it will be scattered. The power that brought the tribesmen together will also disappear. Some tribes on the other side of the sea will disappear. They are not like the wanderers on our side. They are scattered, but their power is still there. They will fight on their own and no longer gather together. With such concerns, do you still choose to do this? Xiao Xian looked at the other side. Fan Mu frowned. He didn't control his emotions as well as the shaman. It could be seen that he was also in a mess. But he still didn't change his mind. The shaman of the drumming tribe said slowly, in fact, I have also considered this. But I believe that we, the people of the drumming tribe, will not be easily shaken. No matter what the form of the fire seed is, the people of the drumming tribe will always be together. Xiao Xian made a comparison and nodded in his heart. Wasn't that right? The people of the drumming tribe were not as hesitant as the people of the Rain tribe. They were more united, and their core was more cohesive. Under the seemingly fierce appearance, they actually had the heart of an otaku. The probability of people dispersing was much higher in the Rain tribe than in the drumming tribe. Xiao Xian had known the people of the drumming tribe for a long time. Although he didn't really spend much time with them, he could infer some things. According to Xiao Xian's understanding of the people of the drumming tribe, if they didn't lack food and had a stable life, they would rather stay in one place than wander around. Sometimes they would want to go out and see the world, but most of the time, they would stay in the same place. Even if they had the water moon stone, which was almost used as a universal currency, they would never have other thoughts. The drumming tribe did have some hidden problems, perhaps more than what Xiao Xian knew. But even so, Xiao Xian was still surprised that they made such a big decision within 15 days. Have you really made up your mind? Xiao Xian asked again. Yes. Fan Mu patted the table as if to encourage himself. Then he stood up and bowed seriously to Xiao Xian with the etiquette of the drumming tribe. I hope Elder Xiao Xian can tell us. As he spoke, Fan Mu took out an animal skin roll from his animal skin coat and handed it to Xiao Xian. It was a promise and an oath. Any request had a price, and what was written on it was the decision made by the drumming tribe's senior leaders after discussion. Xiao Xian glanced at it and put it away. I'll discuss this with our Yanjiao shaman and chief, and I'll tell you the final decision. Thank you. The shaman of the drumming tribe and the chief, Fan Mu, bowed to Xiao Xian seriously again. Tribesmen's bows were not as pleasing to the eye as those pretentious slave masters, but they were more direct and serious. Chapter 606. The Yanjiao people had always had a good impression of the drumming tribe. Although many people didn't say it, Xiao Xian knew that the drumming tribe was still very important to the Yanjiao people. After all, when the river was still there, the first tribe they saw when they crossed the river was the drumming tribe. That was the first tribe they saw when Yanjiao returned from the world. After seeing the promise on the animal skin scroll, the Yanjiao shaman and chief nodded without hesitation. The drumming tribe would support Yanjiao and would not betray them. In fact, if the two continents hadn't changed and were still so far apart, the tribes here would have continued to live as they were. But now, the two continents were so close to each other that no one knew what would happen in the future. One side had nothing to worry about, while the other side had their hands tied because of the ancient fire seed. Once a conflict broke out, it was obvious which side the situation would favor. Helping the drumming tribe was also helping Yanjiao. They could even get a helping hand. But Zheng Luo was worried. Didn't you say that the drumming tribe's water moon stones came from the water moon canal? And the drumming tribe's water moon canal was formed because of the fire seed. If the ancient fire seed is gone, does that mean the drumming tribe's water moon stones are gone too? I asked them about this, Xiao Xian said. At that time, the shaman and Fan Mu seemed very confident. To put it bluntly, the drumming shaman and Fan Mu had thought about this question before, but they didn't think it was a big problem. The drumming tribe was more familiar with water moon stones because they belonged to the drumming tribe. If Xiao Xian, a non-frooming tribesman, could make water moon stones without the fire seed, why couldn't the drumming tribe do the same? What others saw as blind confidence was natural for the drumming tribe. With Xiao Xian as an example, the drumming shaman and Fan Mu didn't think they would fail. If this happened to the Rain tribe, they would probably struggle for at least half a year. In the Rain tribe's eyes, the drumming tribe made such a decision in such a short time. They were too careless and didn't think through it thoroughly. They lacked the nerve called caution. They only grew in height but not in brains. But Xiao Xian could tell from his conversation with the drumming shaman and Fan Mu that they were serious. Perhaps they had been waiting for this day for a long time. Of course, due to their personalities, different tribes had different ways of doing things. That was why the current situation was so different. Since he decided to tell the drumming tribe about the fire seed, Xiao Xian didn't delay. The next day, he called the drumming shaman over. The two shamans from Yanjiao, the pseudo-shaman Gue Zhe, the drumming shaman, and the Xiao Xian, talked for a while. The two shamans from Yanjiao talked about their experiences and summarized the core points left by their ancestors. Merging the fire seed wasn't easy, there were many details to consider. The drumming shaman stayed in Yanjiao for 3 days and 3 nights without sleep. Finally, he sorted out a plan and left with anxiety and excitement. The crocodile that sent the drumming shaman away was still the same one. It was different from the others. In the past, when the crocodiles were active, it didn't stand out, but in winter, it stood out. Every few decades, a crocodile like this would appear in the drumming tribe. It wasn't the leader of the crocodiles, but it would follow the drumming shaman until the next special crocodile appeared. Xiao Xian was just curious about the special crocodile in the drumming tribe. After that, he didn't pay much attention to it and focused on the merging of the fire seed. It was winter now and there were no enemies. They didn't have to worry about other tribes attacking them. It was indeed a good opportunity, but it wasn't right either. The two shamans from Yanjiao had advised the drumming shaman that if they merged the fire seed after winter, it would be less dangerous. After all, that was the important time for many tribes to sacrifice. Perhaps the fire seed would be more active then. However, this suggestion was rejected by the shaman of the drumming tribe. The flaming horns didn't insist either. It was up to the other party to decide what to do in the future. They only said what they had to say. As for what to do in the future, it was still up to them. So, on a cold day, when Yang Guang appeared and disappeared, snow began to fall. The drumming tribe held a very important sacrifice. For such a small tribe, no one cared whether or not they would hold a sacrifice ceremony, and no one knew when they would hold one. But this time, it was different. In the falling snow, a white flame surged and a brown crocodile appeared in the air. It was just a shadow, the totem of the drumming tribe. The brown crocodile was surrounded by a circle of white flame, which made it even colder in the snow. Across the river, Xiao Xian could hear the crocodiles that were supposed to be hibernating. There was no earth-shattering scene like when the Yanjiao tribe merged the fire seed, but there was still a lot of noise. At least all the tribes living nearby could feel the strong change in the fire seed. The fire seed of a foreign tribe was too strong. As long as one was alive, they could feel it. Unless they were in hibernation, they couldn't ignore it. What's going on? Yang Sui, who was wrapped in animal skin and drinking soup beside the fire, dropped the bowl of soup on the ground. He didn't care about the animal skin and jumped up like a spring. He opened the door and rushed out. Many people of the Rain tribe didn't know what was going on and looked out of the window. Yang Sui rushed out directly. He even forgot that he didn't wear shoes and stepped directly into the snow. Looking in one direction, Yang Sui blinked and blinked again. His mouth was wide open, but he couldn't say a word. He just stared in that direction. After a long while, Yang Sui squeezed out 2 words. Crazy. Others might not know what was going on, but as a shaman, Yang Sui could clearly feel the changes in the fire seed. He had even simulated similar scenes countless times in his mind. However, he always simulated his own tribe. But now, the Rain tribe wasn't the one that was experiencing the changes. It was too sudden. He didn't expect that someone could make such a decision before them. The Rain tribe was the first to contact the Yanjiao tribe. In addition to the Yanjiao tribe, the Rain tribe was also the first to have the idea of merging the fire seed. But now, the crocodiles that were supposed to be hibernating were melting. Merging. Fire. Seed. Fire. How long had it been? Those people of the drumming tribe made such a decision so easily. If they weren't crazy, then what were they? Yang Sui stood in the face of the cold wind. His feet were covered with a layer of snow, but he didn't seem to feel cold. He stared at the direction of the drumming tribe. There seemed to be a white flame surging in the sky. After a long time, when the vague white flame in the sky disappeared, the turbulent aura of the fire seed faded away, and everything became calm again. Yang Sui came back to his senses. He stopped the nearest person and asked him to call the leader and the old guys who had always opposed his decision to come over. I don't care what they are doing. Tell them to come to me immediately. Yang Sui was about to go back to the house, but as soon as he wanted to move, he fell directly on the ground. His legs were so cold that he couldn't feel them. In the end, he had to be carried back to the house. When he went back to the house, Yang Sui was still sighing. How could those bastards beat us to it? Chapter 607. The drumming tribe's actions made Yang Sui's wavering heart firm up. Although he didn't know why the crocodiles would suddenly make such a hasty decision, he had a feeling that it was worth it when the fire seed of the drumming tribe was in turmoil. After dragging it out for so long, Yang Sui didn't have the patience to wait any longer. Now was the time to solve this problem while everyone was resting. When the Rain tribe gathered their people to discuss, the people of the other tribes nearby felt the change, but they didn't know why there was such a big movement. Some of the more timid ones even gave up their original plans to go out and hid at home, afraid that another destructive event would happen. Too many things had happened in the past 2 years, and they were all scared. They should have succeeded, Xiao Xian said as he stood on the mountain, looking at the drumming tribe on the other side of the river. Yes. The shamaness was relieved. She had a good impression of the drumming tribe. Even the people who came from the other side of the sea liked the drumming tribe. After interacting with so many tribes, the drumming tribe was their best neighbor. The drumming tribe also produced water moonstones, so they didn't want anything to happen to the drumming tribe. Now that the drumming tribe had successfully merged with the drumming tribe, they were naturally happy. 2 days later, Xiao Xian, the shamaness and the chief went to the drumming tribe to visit their new neighbor who had just merged with their fire seed. In these 2 days, the complicated emotions of the drumming tribesmen had faded away. However, when Xiao Xian went over, he could still feel a sense of loss from the drumming tribesmen, but they couldn't help but be excited. The fire seed was gone and the fire pond no longer had a fire that burned all year round. It also couldn't provide them with any protection. The power of the fire seed had been dispersed into every drumming tribesman's body. They could only rely on themselves from now on. Since the founding of the tribe, everyone was already used to the fire seed's customs. Now that there was a sudden change, no one could accept it immediately. Perhaps only the young children could accept it quickly. What do you think? Xiao Xian asked Fu Shi, who was chopping wood silently. Actually, the drumming tribesmen had already prepared all kinds of firewood before winter came. The haystacks behind the house were still tall. It's all right. After pondering for a while, Fu Shi finally managed to squeeze out 2 words. Then, he continued to chop the firewood. While waving the stone axe, he said, I feel like I'm full of energy, but something's not right. It's normal. Our tribe was like this at the beginning too. Xiao Xian said, you'll get used to it. Sigh. Fu Shi didn't know how to express his thoughts, so he didn't say anything and continued to chop the firewood. In the drumming tribe, there were many people like Fu Shi. They felt their whole body was full of energy, but at the same time, something was not right. This was because the fire seed had not completely merged with their bodies. It'll be fine once the fusion is completed. To the drumming tribe, the fire seed was one of the most important things. Another important thing was the water moon stones. After the disappearance of the primitive fire seed, the water moon channel, which originally produced water moon stones, could no longer obtain energy from the fire seed. The water moon stones could only be obtained through other channels. With Xiao Xian as an example, after the drumming shaman merged with the fire seed, he tried to turn the water moon stones into glowing water moon stones. However, he never succeeded. The drumming shaman wasn't in a hurry. He knew there were 2 problems to solve. First, he had to complete the fusion of the fire seed in his body. Secondly, the water moon stones were produced when the moon was at its brightest. Other than the fire seed, it also borrowed the moonlight. So, he thought, at least he had to wait until the moon came out. Seeing that the drumming tribe hadn't fully adapted yet, but nothing bad happened, the Xiao Xian and the others felt a little relieved. As for the water moon stones, they could only wait until the moon came out to see if they could succeed. Even if they couldn't get the water moon stones, the drumming shaman didn't regret his decision. After the drumming tribe merged their fire seed, although it was still winter and snow fell from time to time, it didn't stop those curious people from coming over to investigate. Towards these people, the drumming tribe's reaction was still calm. They stopped those people from getting close to the tribe and told the people in the tribe to do what they needed to do. It would be best if they could finish merging their fire seed before winter ended. Once winter ended, they would have a lot of things to do. If they didn't have the water moonstones, they would have to find another way to survive. As for Yanjiao, the Yanjiao people were also worried. They decided to reopen the trading point after the end of winter when the weather warmed up. They would also invite the leaders of the other tribes living in the Flaming River region to participate. However, after thinking about it, they felt that their original plan was far from enough. In other words, they felt that this wasn't enough to show off Yanjiao's strength. Tribesmen had their own rules, which were different from the slave masters. Perhaps many people on the other side of the sea couldn't understand these rules, but here it was. That was why if they wanted to start their first non-violent war here, they had to think about it carefully. These days, Xiao Xian was often called to the mountain for discussions. However, even though Xiao Xian had already integrated into the tribe and tried his best to get used to the tribe's way of thinking, Xiao Xian's way of thinking was different from traditional tribesmen. That was why when it came to matters like this, Xiao Xian mostly listened to other people's suggestions. He rarely expressed his opinion. However, the winter was passing day by day, and it was almost over. If the winter ended early this year, the moon would come out in a few days. They had to solve this matter before the end of the winter. Only then would they have time to act. Otherwise, if they dilly-dallied until the end of the winter to make a decision slowly, things would be rushed later. What should we do? Some people thought that they should invite people from further away. Others thought that they should put on a show to show off their strength, especially their weapons. However, there were different voices of disagreement. Seeing the people in the room arguing, Xiao Xian thought of something. He turned to the shamaness and said, "Why don't we have a show-off feast?" Although the tribe hadn't officially announced the new leader, they had already sat down according to the new order. Xiao Xian sat with the other elders, and the shamaness sat next to him. After Xiao Xian finished speaking, the room fell silent. Duo Kong and Ta, who were arguing, turned to look at Xiao Xian. Everyone else also looked at Xiao Xian, waiting for Xiao Xian to continue. Although Xiao Xian's voice wasn't loud, he only wanted to discuss with the shamaness. Everyone else was fighting for their seats, so they might not notice him. Unexpectedly, as soon as he moved, everyone looked over and pricked up their ears. With their strength and hearing, it wasn't difficult for them to hear Xiao Xian's words. Xiao Xian didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that everyone's heartbeat seemed to be louder and faster. Xiao Xian saw that everyone was looking at him, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the shamaness, then at the other elders. "I think Xian's words are feasible." Ao touched the hilt of his knife, and his eyes flashed. He couldn't help but tap the back of the knife with his fingernails. He took a deep breath and tried to speak in a calm tone. "A show-off feast is indeed a very good idea. Thousands of years have passed, and Yanjiao hasn't held one yet." Ao thought of something and looked at Jing Luo. He only knew about the situation here, not the other side, so he looked at Jing Luo for his opinion. Jing Luo smiled bitterly and shook his head. "We haven't held one either." There were records of banquets in their ancestors' handwritten notes, and there were also some stories that were passed down from generation to generation that involved banquets. However, those were only heard as stories and never taken seriously. Perhaps they had such dreams when they were young, but after they became adults, the burden on them increased, and they became more realistic. They no longer had extravagant hopes, and felt that it was good enough to be alive. Even though the tribe's situation had improved, they never thought about it. It could be said that every tribesman who knew about show-off feasts, whether they were Yanjiao or outsiders, had a dream that one day they could hold a show-off feast. However, until now, in the Flaming Horns tribe, in the past 1,000 years, no one had done it. If you asked what Yanjiao people's dreams were, one of them would definitely be a show-off feast. Are we really going to do it?" Duo Kong whispered. His voice was much softer than before, but it wasn't because he lacked confidence or had different opinions. He was just too excited and tried to suppress his emotions so he didn't shout. The true emotions in his eyes showed how much he agreed with Xiao Xian's words. His burning eyes seemed to tell the decision-maker that he was just waiting for the announcement to begin preparations. Looking at the others, whether it was Ao and Jing Luo, who had retired as elders, or the current quasi-chief Gigu and pseudo-adept Gue Zhe, their eyes flashed with a burning light. Show-off feast, if Xiao Xian hadn't mentioned it, they wouldn't have thought about it. These 3 words had been mentioned for 1,000 years. Back then, it was so unattainable, but now it made their hearts pound, and they felt that they could give it a try. His blood seemed to boil, and his body temperature seemed to rise. His face flushed with excitement, and his breathing became rapid. He rubbed the hilt of his sword more frequently, and his breath became turbulent. He was like a volcano that had been suppressed for 1,000 years, and was about to erupt. Was it finally coming? Could Yanjiao really hold a show-off feast? Not for you, not for me, not for anyone, but for the entire tribe. Not for anyone in the tribe, but for the other tribes living in the Flaming River region. Xiao Xian used to think that the people who did this were arrogant. Arrogant. Idiotic. But now, Xiao Xian could understand the feelings and thoughts of the other tribesmen. In order to make people follow you willingly, you didn't need to use force to beat them up again and again, nor did you need to persuade them one by one, nor did you need to offer them benefits. You just needed to hold a show-off feast, and naturally, countless followers would come willingly to worship you. Your reputation would also rise. In the middle of winter, they felt their blood boiling uncontrollably, as if it was about to spurt out of their pores. They couldn't stay calm. What was their purpose in opening up the trading point and inviting other tribesmen? Of course, it was to increase Yanjiao's prestige in this region. Gain the support of other tribes, including the drumming tribe, and gain their respect. If they could do this, then it would indeed be a good way to prove Yanjiao's strength and status. In the eyes of many people, the distorted values and outlook on life were like a skill that emitted holy light in such a living environment and era. Only those who could truly master it could have such a respectable aura. He had to show off. Not only did he have to show off, he had to do it well. Now, Xiao Xian was about to do what he had dreamed of when he was still living in the cave. He still remembered that night, when Lang Jie and the others were roasting meat by the fire. They had said to Xiao Xian in the tone of an elder, "You still don't understand." Back then, Xiao Xian had thought that one day, he would be an idiot too. Now, not only was he about to do what he thought was an idiot, he was about to bring the entire Yanjiao tribe with him. What does everyone think of Elder Xiao Xian's suggestion? The old woman saw that no one spoke and couldn't help but slam the cane in her hand on the ground. The sound of the walking stick hitting the ground with a bang brought everyone back to their senses. Their eyes were out of focus, and they were secretly enjoying themselves. What do you think? This suggestion was too damn good. Duo Kong wanted to stand up and jump up and down to show his excitement. If anyone has a different opinion, you can speak up, Gigu said. Those who were about to speak up because of the old woman's words quickly shut their mouths. The muscles around their mouths were twitching because they had closed their mouths too hard. It affected their facial nerves, making them look like they were gnashing their teeth. The room was so quiet that only the sound of everyone's heavy breathing could be heard. After waiting for a while and seeing that no one responded, the shaman chuckled and nodded to Gigu, who was sitting at the front. Gigu's gaze swept over the elders. He didn't say anything, but he could tell the other party's decision through eye contact. Finally, his gaze swept over Xiao Xian, who was sitting at the front of the elders' seats. Seeing Xiao Xian nod, Gigu and Guizhe whispered to each other before saying, "If that's the case, then we'll do as the great elder says. However, it's still winter, so it's not the best time to hunt. After winter ends, the tribe will start moving." No one objected to this decision. Anyway, winter was almost over. They could use this time to prepare. Once winter was over, they would start hunting. Duo Kong also planned to hunt an even fiercer beast as a trophy. When the time came, he could show it off at the banquet and let everyone know that it was him, the leader of the Yanjiao tribe, who hunted it. It was the result of him, Duo Kong, leading the team. After the meeting ended, everyone hurriedly left and gathered their main subordinates. They rubbed their palms together and planned to do something big after winter ended. Chapter 608. Winter had yet to end, but the tribe was already bustling with activity. It was no longer as cold as before. Not only that, but every Yanjiao tribesman had uncontrollable smiles on their faces. Xiao Xian noticed that old Ku's wrinkles had deepened over the past 2 days. News of Yanjiao's plan to hold a banquet had already spread throughout the tribe. Everyone was gearing up for a big event after the end of winter. No one felt that it was extravagant or wasteful. Just like Xiao Xian, they couldn't wait to raise both hands in approval. Moreover, this banquet would not be held by a single person but by the entire tribe. Just the thought of it made them excited. Many of them had not slept well for several days in a row. They were too excited and couldn't fall asleep at all. The chief and shaman had said that each of their clans would have a chance to show off when the time came. The number of new bronzes was still limited. Even if some people already had one would definitely not be enough for hunting. The rest would have to be settled with stone tools. Therefore, from the top of the mountain to the bottom, the sound of stone tools being polished could be heard all the time. Even at night, some people could see firelight seeping through the narrow gaps in their houses. Although they couldn't hit the stone tools recklessly late at night because it would be too noisy, they could still polish them. Due to the cataclysm, the night swallow that used to appear at night had disappeared for a period of time. They had not been seen recently either. Some people said that they had flown to other places with the migrating birds, while others said that they had been scared away by the cha-cha. No matter what the truth was, the night swallow was no longer seen in the tribe. This made the tribe, which no longer had a primitive fire seed, feel safer. Besides, even if the night swallow returned, the tribe would wipe them out and not let them pose a threat to the people in the tribe. Xiao Xian did a rough calculation. If they were going to hold the banquet, they would have to wait for about 100 days after the end of winter. This way, the opening of the trading point would have to be delayed. But that didn't matter. It wouldn't be too late to open the trading point after the banquet was prepared and the invitations were sent out. The first outsider to find out about Yanjiao's upcoming banquet was Yang Sui. He had wanted to discuss the matter of the fire seed with Xiao Xian, but he did not expect to hear such shocking news. That was a banquet to show off the rich. And it was held in the form of a tribe. This was crazy. For many tribesmen today, Yanjiao's actions were indeed shocking. Have you decided? Xiao Xian asked. I've decided. Yang Sui looked away from the busy Yanjiao people in the snow and nodded hard. The drumming tribe's actions made him more determined and convinced many people in the Rain tribe. Even if there were still some who opposed, most of them still supported Yang Sui. For us, it's not the best time to merge the fire seed, but I have to make preparations first. Xiao Xian did not say much. He explained to Yang Sui the things he needed to pay attention to in detail. He believed that after this, Yang Sui would go to the drumming tribe to ask for their advice. When Yang Sui returned to the Rain tribe, he was still in a trance. When he came back to his senses, he was already sitting in the shaman's house, surrounded by a circle of people. Most of them looked at Yang Sui with condemnation, as if Yang Sui had done something wrong. But because of Yang Sui's influence in the Rain tribe, they did not dare to say it to his face. Even if they agreed to merge the fire seed, they still felt uncomfortable and kept a straight face all day. Now that Yang Sui had returned from Yanjiao, they did not smile. I've already learned the method of merging the fire seed from Yanjiao. I've also asked the drumming tribe. I'll think about it carefully and make a final plan before I tell you the specific time, Yang Sui said. Many people sitting around just glanced at Yang Sui and then lowered their eyelids again to avoid Yang Sui seeing the disapproval and anger in their eyes. Even if Yang Sui did not see their expressions, he could guess what they were thinking. However, Yang Sui did not say much. Instead, he sighed heavily. This time, I went to Yanjiao and got some news. Hearing Yang Sui's words, the surrounding people's eyelids twitched. Although they didn't look at Yang Sui, they had already pricked up their ears. They wanted to know what Yang Sui had learned. His long sigh just now contained a lot of complicated emotions. One of Yang Sui's supporters couldn't help but ask, "Shaman, what news did you get? Is Yanjiao doing something again?" That's right, Yang Sui looked around meaningfully and said, "Yanjiao is holding a banquet to show off their wealth." What? The person who was unhappy jumped up as if he had been kicked. He stared straight at Yang Sui. It's really a banquet to show off their wealth and not something else. It's true. Yang Sui became serious too. He emphasized every word, it's happening when the Flaming River trading point opens again. Everyone in the room gasped in unison. The supplies they had now were only enough to ensure their survival. They still owed a lot of debt, and they had to scrimp on every meal to survive through the winter. On the other hand, the Flaming Horn tribe was already considering holding a banquet to show off their wealth. How rich must the Yanjiao tribe be to have the idea of holding a banquet to show off their wealth? After the initial shock, the room erupted into chaos. They also knew about the showing off banquet, but they had only heard about it and had never seen it with their own eyes. Perhaps the big tribes in the central region had held such banquets before, but the Rain tribe had always lived in a remote place and had never experienced it. Everything was just hearsay. But now, Yang Sui was telling them that they would be witnessing a grand banquet in the near future. Yang Sui ignored the chatter around him and continued, "I've already received the notice. The Flaming Horns will inform me of the specific time and time. I will bring a group of people to the Flaming River trading point to participate." The discussion suddenly stopped. "Bring some people?" These words were quite subtle. "Then, can I go too?" someone asked Yang Sui. "What about me?" "Me too." Yang Sui didn't give a direct answer. Instead, he said, "We'll decide when the time comes. I don't know how many people I can bring. There's a limit to the number of people." "What's the point of that? How many people do we have?" An elder complained. His words were laced with jealousy. "It can't be helped. After all, the Flaming Horn tribe still needs to invite other tribes. That way, there will be more people. That's why every tribe has a quota. The Grand Elder of the Flaming Horn tribe asked me to prepare in advance so that I don't know who to bring." "Of course you're bringing me. Shaman, I've always supported you." "Me too, me too." "Shaman, I suddenly feel that merging fire seeds isn't bad. Yanjiao can already hold banquets and they've already merged their fire seeds. You can't go wrong following them." Yang Sui looked at the people around him. A few days ago, they were still strongly protesting, but now they had changed their minds. It wasn't that they changed their minds because of Yanjiao's banquet, but they knew that the merging of fire seeds couldn't be changed. Even if they protested, it was useless. Instead of continuing this stalemate, they might as well use this opportunity to show their loyalty. Who knows, they might even be able to attend Yanjiao's banquet. They had never really attended a banquet in their lives. In fact, the meaning of the banquet had changed a little. In the beginning, it was a way for the leaders of the tribes to show off their abilities and increase their prestige. If it was a banquet organized by a powerful tribe, the people invited were all influential figures in their respective tribes. Attending such a banquet was also a form of recognition of their status. At least, it was said that the banquets organized by the central tribes were like this. Presumably, the banquet organized by the Flaming Horn tribe would be similar. How could they let go of such an opportunity? Yang Sui smiled. He mentioned Yanjiao's banquet for this purpose. Driven by benefits, these people would be more supportive of him. With the success of the Flaming Horn tribe as an example, those who had previously opposed the idea would now reconsider. Even the few stubborn old men in the tribe who were the most against the idea had begun to waver. Those who didn't know wouldn't even look at it. But now, everyone who entered the house had their eyes on the small stone in the shaman's hand. After merging their fire seed, they couldn't change the stone because there was no moonlight. Now, the moon was out and there was moonlight. This should be enough, right? Even though it was just a thin crescent moon and wasn't as bright as a full moon, they could still feel the difference. The shaman of the drumming tribe took a deep breath and opened the door to an empty space in front of the door. Without the trees, they could see the two dim moons in the night sky. Taking a deep breath, the shaman of the drumming tribe began to mobilize the power of the fire seed in his body. The power of the fire seed existed in the totem in his mind, and also in his blood, bones, and muscles. A trace of power extended from the totem flame in his mind. It flowed down his neck, passed through his arm, and gathered all the power along the way. Finally, it was transmitted to the palm that held the stone, and merged with the stone. The shaman of the drumming tribe could feel that this stone was different from the ones he tried in the winter. He could feel that the water moon stone in his hand was alive. It was no longer an ordinary stone. Rustle, 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 the sound of fine particles falling was heard slowly. It was a sound that the people of the drumming tribe were familiar with. Every year when there was a full moon, they could hear this sound at the edge of the water moon canal. Although this sound was very slow and intermittent, and was far from the movement of the water moon passage when the moon was full, this alone was enough to excite them. Even if they were very confident that they wouldn't fail, they still had to be prepared for the worst. They had even thought of the situation where they couldn't create water moonstones anymore. The scene in front of them proved that they would continue to hear this familiar sound for the rest of their lives until they could no longer hear any sound in the world. Not far away, the chief of the drumming tribe, Fan Mu, was holding his breath. His clenched fists were trembling because of too much force. Especially when he heard that sound, his trembling became even more intense. The stone in the drumming shaman's hand looked very ordinary, but now the top of the stone was shining brightly. It was the light of the water moon stone. Even though the light was very small and dim, it could be ignored if you didn't pay attention. Everyone who saw this scene waved their fists in the air excitedly. Yes! It really works! The great elder of the Yanjiao tribe is telling the truth. We can really make the water moon stone by ourselves. After the joy of the Yanjiao tribe, the drumming tribe also laughed happily. In the dark night, some big and small figures came out of the holes in the ground. A crocodile looked up at the night sky and made a few low growls. Winter was over, the river was about to thaw, and the hunting was about to begin. Chapter 609. After the ceremony in Yanjiao, Xiao Xian returned from his hunt in the forest. He returned to the tribe with the rest of the hunting party. According to the rules here, they walked up the path of glory from the bottom of the mountain to the top. They went through the cleansing ceremony and sorted out the game. When everything was over, Guizhe told Xiao Xian that the shaman of the drumming tribe had come to visit 3 times while they were out hunting. However, he didn't seem to be in a hurry and it didn't seem like something big had happened. The shaman of the drumming tribe? Xiao Xian thought for a moment. The shaman of the drumming tribe had come to visit him so frequently because of 2 things. It was either the fire seed or the water moon stones. He didn't go to the others? Xiao Xian asked. If it was the fire seed, the shaman of the drumming tribe would have gone to the 2 former shamans of Yanjiao, who had already become elders, if he didn't see Xiao Xian. No, he just came every time to ask if you're back, and then he left. Guizhe briefly explained what had happened during this period of time. I can roughly guess. Xiao Xian passed the game in his hands to the warrior beside him and pointed at the 2 sharp teeth of the giant beast. Keep an eye on this pair of teeth for me. You guys handle the rest. The warrior in charge of handling the game quickly nodded. Because they brought back too much game this time, after they brought back the game, they were all processed by the experienced old hunters. Then, they were thrown into the ice cave to freeze or pickle the meat. The rest of them went back to rest. For the Flaming River Trading Points banquet, this was their first hunt of the year. Everyone was exhausted. They had gained a lot from this hunt. Maybe it was because everyone had merged with the fire seed, or maybe it was because of the new bronze equipment, plus the excitement of the banquet. The hunting party was much smoother than before. The trophies they brought back were piled up like a mountain. This time, Xiao Xian and the rest of the hunting party went to the green patch in the forest. It was an area dominated by plants. Because it was more dangerous there, Xiao Xian didn't bring Caesar along. After losing an eye, Caesar's movements seemed to have returned to normal. However, if he really went there, he would still be restricted. That was why Xiao Xian only brought Cha-Cha. Speaking of which, Xiao Xian found Cha-Cha there. At that time, Cha-Cha was just an egg stolen by other birds. When Xiao Xian brought it back, he almost cooked it and ate it. This time, Cha-Cha followed Xiao Xian to the green patch and fought with the flock of birds there. However, they were birds of the green patch and there were many of them. Even though Cha-Cha had undergone 2 transformations at Eagle Mountain, it still couldn't easily gain the upper hand against a flock of birds like that. Even after returning to the tribe, Cha-Cha was still in a bad mood. After Xiao Xian went down the mountain and returned to his house, he didn't immediately go to the other side to look for them. He wanted to take a nap first. Unfortunately, not long after Xiao Xian closed his eyes, the shaman of the drumming tribe came over. No wonder the shaman of the drumming tribe was so well informed. After all, when the Yanjiao hunting party came back, they made too much noise. Even across the flaming river, the drumming tribe could hear and see them. This was the first time the shaman of the drumming tribe saw a Yanjiao hunting party return. No wonder when he came to look for Xiao Xian, the Yanjiao people told him that if the hunting party came back, the other side would definitely hear them. So that's why. After coming to Yanjiao, the shaman of the drumming tribe went straight to Xiao Xian's house. Xiao Xian yawned as he watched the shaman carefully take out a pouch made of animal skin. Then, he took out a water moonstone the size of an egg. However, compared to the water moonstones he used before, this one was much dimmer and had no shine on its surface. The water moonstones used to be as smooth as a peeled egg and had a slight coolness to them. However, the one in front of him wasn't like that. Other than the dimness, it was rough to the touch. The surface of the crystal had many uneven wrinkles, like sand. This is a water moonstone. Xiao Xian was confused. That's right. A smile appeared on the shaman's face. This water moonstone was made by me. It took me 8 days. During the 8 days of making the water moonstone, other than eating and drinking when he was too hungry or resting when he didn't have the energy to continue, the shaman of the drumming tribe spent the rest of his time making the water moonstone. When Xiao Xian was on the other side of the sea, he felt very dizzy when he turned the stone into a water moonstone for the first time. The shaman of the drumming tribe was even more dizzy. He couldn't even complete the transformation in one go. He had to do it over 10 times in 8 days. This was why the surface of the water moonstone wasn't smooth. Every change on the surface was a node for the shaman of the drumming tribe to continue after he rested. Plus, the moon had just come out at that time. It wasn't bright, so it was difficult to make the water moonstone. That was why the stone was so dim after it was completed. However, all of this proved that Xiao Xian was right. They could indeed change the water moonstone themselves. Now, after merging with the fire seed, everyone in the drumming tribe was like a miniature version of the fire seed. The power of the fire seed still existed in their bodies. The success of the shaman of the drumming tribe meant that the others in the tribe could do the same. Take it slow. Try a few more times and you'll get better. Xiao Xian handed the stone back to the shaman. He wanted to comfort him, but he didn't expect to see the shaman's proud face. He didn't seem to be ashamed or troubled by this. I think so too. The shaman of the drumming tribe wanted to share this with Xiao Xian. He wanted to share his experience in turning stones into water moonstones. After all, in the entire Yanjiao tribe, only Xiao Xian had this special ability. It was useless to ask anyone else. After chatting for a while, the shaman of the drumming tribe hurried back. He was now making the second water moonstone. He had already made half of it. He should be able to finish it in 2 days. Compared to the previous one, this one was a day earlier. It was still an improvement. Plus, he didn't know if it was because the moonlight was stronger or because he was more familiar with the fire seed, but the second water moonstone was brighter than the first. Now that the shaman of the drumming tribe had succeeded in making the first water moonstone, everyone in the drumming tribe started to learn this skill. This skill was no doubt a shortcut for them to survive. It was also their tribe's advantage. The water moonstones that the crocodiles had taken out from the water had been kept in their own homes. This year, they didn't have to wait for the full moon. They could rely on their own abilities to complete everything. They also didn't have to worry about being attacked and robbed by other people with bad intentions on that day. The drumming tribe's restless hearts calmed down because of the successful conversion of the water moonstones. At the same time, the Rain tribe, who had just finished their fire seed merging ceremony, was still in the early stages of the process. Xiao Xian didn't have much time to understand these people. He still had a new mission. Because Yanjiao and the Hui tribe were partners, this time, Yanjiao was hosting a banquet at the Flaming River trading point. Although they said they would invite the neighboring tribes, they still had to invite those who were close to them. They also had to inform the other major tribes. That was why Xiao Xian brought an invitation letter personally written by the new shaman. He sat on Cha-Cha's back and headed to the grasslands. There were other people who set off with Xiao Xian, but they weren't going to the same place as Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian was going to the grasslands to invite the Hui tribe. He was also going to send an invitation to the Tian Shan tribe. The others were going to send invitations to the other major tribes. The Yanjiao people didn't care if the other tribes were going to the banquet or not. They just wanted to inform the other tribes that Yanjiao had the ability to host banquets. Xiao Xian followed the route he took the first time he went to the grasslands with the expedition team. Although the disaster was intense, the changes on the grasslands weren't as obvious as other places. At least, what Xiao Xian saw now wasn't much different from what he remembered. The Hui tribe left behind a map of the grasslands, but Xiao Xian didn't choose the fastest route. In this season, the grasslands were green again. Waves of grass rose with the wind and spread into the distance. Thud 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 thud, behind a distant mound, a group of patrolling soldiers on horses passed by. This was something they had to do every day. Because they raised cattle, sheep and other livestock, in addition to guarding against poachers on land, they also had to watch out for birds of prey in the air. As soon as they saw a suspicious figure in the air, they entered a tense state of alert. "It's an eagle," someone shouted. "Be careful, ready the arrows. Wait for it to fly low, then shoot." The leader of the patrol, Bei, signaled the people behind him to be ready to shoot the eagle. Even if they couldn't kill it, they just had to chase it away. However, the eagle was flying too high in the sky. When they looked up, Yangguang was too dazzling. Plus, the eagle was flying so high that they couldn't see what it looked like. They could only tell that it was an eagle based on experience. As for what kind of eagle it was, they couldn't see it clearly. "Leader, it's flying towards our tribe," someone shouted anxiously. The area they were patrolling now was only the edge of the Feng tribe. If they went further, there would be herds of cattle and sheep grazing on the grasslands. The herders might not be able to stop the predator in the sky in time. "Blow the horn." Bei raised his hand and signaled the people next to him to blow the horn, reminding the people in other places of the tribe to be careful in the sky. However, when the man just took out the horn and was about to blow it, he heard a few whistles in the sky. "That's the sound of a wooden whistle." Bei stopped the man with the horn and looked up at the sky. He used his hand to block the dazzling Yangguang and stared at the figure in the sky that began to fly lower. If someone whistled, it meant that it wasn't an eagle living alone in the forest, but belonged to a tribe. There were too many tribes with eagles on the grasslands, and the whistles in the sky didn't belong to any tribe he was familiar with. The whistles continued. After watching for a while, Bei waved his hand, put away the arrows. No matter who it was in the sky, they didn't mean to attack or steal. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been discovered so easily and didn't try to hide after being discovered. In this case, it wasn't good to point arrows at them. On the grasslands, pointing arrows at the other party wasn't a friendly gesture, but an offensive one. Before figuring out the other party's background and intentions, Bei didn't want to offend them easily. Their tribe was located at the edge of the grasslands, so they had more contact with traveling teams. When they encountered things, they had more to think about. They thought more comprehensively than many tribesmen who didn't interact with the outside world. Of course, putting away the arrows didn't mean that they didn't have to be on guard. The people who put away their bows all touched their knives. However, when Bei saw the figure in the sky flying closer and closer, his eyes became bigger and bigger. That. What is that? It's so big. The people behind eBay looked at the approaching figure and said. They didn't feel it when they were far away, but now that they were closer, they could estimate the size of the eagle in the sky. That was why they were so shocked. On the grasslands, there were many tribes with eagles, but only a few tribes had eagles like this. The two most famous tribes were the Hui tribe and the Tian Shan tribe. Even though they both lived on the grasslands, eBay didn't know much about these two tribes because he rarely interacted with them. That was why he couldn't tell which tribe the whistle belonged to. The eagle flew over the horses. Even though it was still some distance away, the wind from the flapping of its wings almost blew the people on the horses away. When the eagle flew over, a figure jumped down from its back and landed steadily on the grassland in front of the horses. eBay and the others looked over and tightened their grip on the hilts of their knives. They stared at the young man with a bag on his back. Everyone, long time no see. Xiao Xian greeted them with a smile. eBay felt that the person in front of him looked familiar, but he couldn't remember who it was. Ah! Xiao Xian, it's you. Several young figures in the crowd jumped down from their horses and ran toward Xiao Xian. The first one was Guire. When old he and the others were still wanderers, they had been hurting for Guire's family. Speaking of which, Xiao Xian had saved Guire's life and carved a wolfwood carving. At that time, Guire was just a child, but now he was a teenager. Doya and the others beside Guire had also grown up. Now they were warriors who could officially follow the patrol. Their clothes were different from other children in the tribe. As soon as Guire shouted, eBay remembered. The vigilance on his face faded and he smiled. The Yanjiao tribe was more powerful than their tribe. They were always polite to people from powerful tribes, not to mention old acquaintances. However, he didn't know why the Yanjiao people had such a big eagle. The last time he saw Xiao Xian, his eagle was not so big. Did they change it? Why did you come to the grassland at this time? What's the matter? eBay asked. I plan to go to the Hui tribe. Xiao Xian didn't hide this. Hui tribe? eBay was puzzled. Why would they go there? To invite them to the banquet at the Flaming River trading point. Banquet? A weak tribe couldn't host a banquet, let alone a banquet that invited people from a big tribe. Oh, right, this is for you. As he spoke, he took off the things on his back and unwrapped the linen cloth. With a flick of his hand, he tossed two giant beast teeth to eBay and the rest. eBay caught one of the beast fangs, but his hands were trembling as he held it. He had never seen such a big tooth. Chapter 6:10. When Xiao Xian decided to go to the grasslands, he decided to visit the Feng tribe. First, he wanted to see how the tribe was doing. It was rare to find a familiar grassland tribe. Second, the Feng tribe's geographical location was special. They would often meet travelers from other tribes. This part of the grasslands was a place the Winterfront Tower's fleet had not been to before. Xiao Xian planned to start with the Feng tribe and let them help spread the news. Although there was no formal invitation, Xiao Xian did tell eBay and the others that if they had time, they could go to the Flaming River trading point. It would be great if they could make it in time for the banquet, but if they couldn't, they could still buy some animal skins. Not every tribe could send out a traveler team. The Feng tribe didn't have one. They just stayed where they were and waited for other tribes to send their teams. When they heard Xiao Xian's words, the Feng tribe was shocked. Setting up a trading point wasn't anything new. There were trading points in other places, but what Xiao Xian told them made the Feng tribe's people stunned even after Xiao Xian left. Setting up a trading point was one thing, but a banquet? That wasn't something that could be held easily, especially on the scale of a show-off banquet. It was unbelievable. For people who valued food more than their lives, asking them to take out food to hold a banquet was like asking for their lives. That was why they envied those tribes who could take out large amounts of food to hold banquets. The standard for a show-off banquet was to have a large amount of food left after the banquet ended. Hiss, eBay took a deep breath. Xiao Xian was no longer in front of him. The shadow of the eagle in the sky was getting further and further away. It was only a small dot in the sky, disappearing quickly. "Boss, that man, is what he said true?" Only now did a warrior of the Feng tribe dare to come forward and ask. Just now, he was really shocked by the giant eagle in the sky. He wasn't familiar with Xiao Xian, so now that Xiao Xian and the eagle had left, he had the courage to ask. Yi Bei wanted to reply, "How would I know?" But before the words came out of his mouth, his gaze fell on the huge beast tooth that was even taller than him. His tongue seemed to be tied and he couldn't say anything. The beast tooth stood upright with one end touching the ground. Yi Bei rode on the horse and hugged the beast tooth to prevent it from falling. With such a large animal tooth, if he did not rely on external forces, even if he could carry it himself, it would be quite difficult for him to move freely, and the horse would probably be unable to move. The beast tooth was already so big, so one could only imagine how huge the beast was. Although he had never seen such a huge beast before, he could tell many things from the beast tooth in his arms based on his experience. There were still bloodstains on the beast tooth, which meant it hadn't been pulled out for long. Moreover, even if it was just a tooth that had been removed from the beast's body, the ferocious aura of the ferocious beast still lingered on it. When he caught the beast tooth, the horse's legs went soft and it almost fell down. It was also very anxious. If it weren't for the fact that he had raised this horse from a young age and trained it well, it would have screamed and run away the moment Xiao Xian threw the beast tooth. Thinking about how Xiao Xian easily jumped down from the eagle's back with two huge beast teeth, stood steadily, and then threw the beast tooth as easily as a ball. There should be many people like this in the Yanjiao tribe, right? Such a tribe couldn't hold a banquet. Yi Bei didn't believe it himself. In the traditional view of the Feng tribe, the Yanjiao tribe that had just emerged in recent years, even if they had been in the limelight before, such as destroying the Wanxia tribe and so on, there was still a big gap between them and the other old tribes. But now, many people's views had begun to change. Perhaps they had greatly underestimated this tribe. Of the two beast teeth, one was caught by Yi Bei, but no one dared to take the other one. When Xiao Xian threw it out, the horse didn't wait for the rider to react and hurriedly retreated a few steps. That was the nature of animals, to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. They could feel the beast's aura coming from the beast tooth. Boss! Boss, what about this tooth? After Xiao Xian left, the others hurriedly dismounted and came to the other beast tooth on the ground. They touched it and felt the beast's aura at close range. Even if they didn't see the beast's complete form, they still felt a sense of fear. However, the more frightened they felt, the more they couldn't bear to put it down. "Take it back," Yi Bei said. These two beast teeth were given by Xiao Xian as gifts between tribes. There were engravings on the teeth, such as Yanjiao Xiao Xian presents to the Feng tribe and engraved with the Yanjiao totem. Beast teeth were hard and huge. It wasn't easy to carve or draw on hard objects, but the words and engravings on the teeth in front of him were very smooth and exquisite. He couldn't find any flaws. Yi Bei didn't know what Xiao Xian used to carve or draw on the teeth, but he wasn't in the mood to think about it. He moved his hand and felt the smooth surface of the teeth. The smoothness of the teeth proved that the beast often used them. They weren't just for decoration. These were the teeth of a real beast that hunted for food. The killing aura still lingered in the air. Yanjiao tribe. Flaming River Trading Point. Yi Bei retracted his gaze and ordered his men to send the two beast teeth back to the tribe. Since they were given away, they now belonged to the Feng tribe. They could even sell them at a higher price. However, Yi Bei wasn't the only one unwilling. The other warriors of the Feng tribe wouldn't be willing to give away these two giant beast teeth just like that. As expected, after Yi Bei and the rest brought the fangs back, the Feng chief could guess Xiao Xian's plan. This was a mutually beneficial deal. At the same time, he really liked the fangs. He even placed the two fangs in front of his house, one on the left and one on the right, like door gods. The chief of the Feng tribe even used animal skin to carefully clean the teeth every day. He was afraid that the teeth would turn gray and get stained with mud and grass. Just like how a treasured sword couldn't be covered with dust, these two beasts' teeth should be kept sharp and smooth. It was as if they could be put back into the mouth of the beast to continue hunting. The two beasts' teeth caused a sensation in the Feng tribe. Ever since then, every expedition team that arrived at the Feng tribe would be attracted by these two eye-catching beast teeth. When they found out that the Feng tribe didn't plan to sell these two beast teeth, they sighed regretfully. In most places on the mainland, these beasts didn't exist. If you wanted to find them, you would have to go to the fearsome beast forest. In the past, no one dared to go there. Even if they went now, it would be difficult to find them. The fearsome beast forest had changed too much during the disaster last year, so no one dared to go there. The words engraved on the beast's teeth made more people remember the Yanjiao tribe. Whenever they mentioned the Yanjiao tribe, travelers who had been to the Feng tribe would think of the two beast teeth. Then they would realize, oh, you're talking about the Yanjiao tribe that hunts giant beasts. At the same time as Yanjiao, the Flaming River trading point also spread. Xiao Xian had drawn a simple map from the grasslands to the Flaming River trading point on the other beast's tooth. He used paint that was hard to fade. Even if the paint faded after a long time, the carvings on the beast's tooth wouldn't disappear. Many expedition teams also copied the map. Many of them were brave enough to follow the map to the Flaming River trading point. The best beast skin and the best fearsome beast meat were extremely tempting to many tribesmen. All of this was within Xiao Xian's expectations. Just as the Feng tribesmen and the expedition teams who saw the beast's teeth were discussing Yanjiao and the Flaming River trading point, Xiao Xian had already followed the map and reached the Hui tribe. The Hui tribe had a large grassland and an endless mountain range. These were all part of the Hui tribe's territory. When he was at the edge of the Hui tribe's territory, Xiao Xian saw an eagle patrolling in the sky. It was an eagle that hadn't experienced what happened at Eagle Mountain. When it saw Cha-Cha, it cried out. It had seen Cha-Cha before. Back when Xiao Xian went to the other side of the sea, Cha-Cha came to the Hui tribe by himself and met many of the Hui tribe's giant mountain eagles. However, Cha-Cha had changed so much that the eagle couldn't recognize him. Its cry was a warning signal. Caw, Cha-Cha ignored the eagle's warning and cried out to himself. His cry was louder and sharper, as if he wanted to tear the clouds apart. However, Xiao Xian knew that they couldn't fly around, so he signaled Cha-Cha to stay put. At the same time, he showed the patrolling man a stone card. Xiao Xian had gotten it at the peak of Eagle Mountain. It was a gift from a giant eagle of the Hui tribe. Please inform them that Xiao Xian from Yanjiao is here to visit, Xiao Xian shouted. The patrolling man was very young. At first, he looked at Xiao Xian with obvious hostility, but when he saw the stone card Xiao Xian took out, his expression changed. If Xiao Xian came alone or with other people on other beasts, he definitely wouldn't believe that stone card was real. He would even blow the whistle to signal an enemy attack. However, the giant eagle that Xiao Xian was riding was indeed a giant mountain eagle. It was the same type of eagle as their tribe and not the type from Tian Shan tribe. Yanjiao tribe? Hearing that it was Yanjiao, the man believed Xiao Xian a little. He had heard that the Hui tribe was cooperating with Yanjiao, but he always felt that the Yanjiao tribe wasn't qualified. He didn't know why their chief would choose to cooperate with Yanjiao. However, when he saw the giant eagle not far away, his original opinion was shaken. That eagle was even bigger than Shan Dao, who had been to Eagle Mountain once. He didn't know if Gula knew it. Wait. The man didn't take out his whistle. He just moved his cheeks and a white bone whistle appeared in his mouth. The sharp whistle was like the cry of an eagle. It spread out with a specific rhythm, echoing between heaven and earth. The cry of the patrolling eagle attracted some people who were patrolling in other places, but they couldn't make the decision. They hadn't been on a long journey before, so they hadn't seen Xiao Xian before. They couldn't tell if Xiao Xian was real or not. They didn't know when the people who could make the decision would come. During this time, the people in the sky were divided into two groups. One group was patrolling the Hui tribe, and the other group was Xiao Xian standing on the eagle's back. "You're Xiao Xian." A Hui tribe warrior looked at Xiao Xian several times. Many people in the Hui tribe knew the name Xiao Xian. When the expedition team came back, they brought back a lot of news. Among them, the chief mentioned Xiao Xian from Yanjiao the most. This made many young people in the Hui tribe unconvinced. They didn't want to admit it because they hadn't seen it with their own eyes. The few people from the Hui tribe were about to say something when the eagle carrying them retreated a little. It seemed to feel unsafe, so it retreated a little more. When they didn't say anything, the giant mountain eagles they cooperated with would rarely behave like this. This abnormal situation drew their attention back to the giant mountain eagle on the other side. It seemed that the eagle on the other side wasn't in a good mood. When the eagle was in a good mood, it was easy to fight. When it was in a bad mood, it was even easier to fight. It was no wonder that the eagles on this side retreated. The eagles on this side had not experienced the change of Eagle Mountain, and the one on the other side was obviously several levels higher. Even if they had the advantage in numbers and could fight 5 or 6 against 1, they might not be able to gain the upper hand. It was very likely that they would be defeated very badly. Fortunately, the eagle opposite them didn't want to fight for the time being. It was just in a bad mood. The few warriors of the Hui tribe didn't know that the reason why Cha-Cha didn't move its claws was not because it didn't want to bully the weak. The giant mountain eagle wasn't that noble. In fact, Xiao Xian moved his feet a little to signal Cha-Cha not to act rashly. Besides, what was the point of bullying a young eagle when it was in a bad mood? Even if it wanted to fight, it should wait until the big eagle of the Hui tribe appeared. Even if it didn't move its claws, when Cha-Cha's eagle eyes swept over them, the few people and eagles on the other side all looked nervous. Because they knew the habits of the giant mountain eagle, they knew that once the eagle got angry, it wouldn't be easy to deal with it. Caw, an eagle's cry came from afar, followed by several other eagle cries from different directions. People from other places heard the noise and rushed over. There were only eagles flying over from 2 directions. There were no people on the back of the eagles. Maybe the people weren't out on a mission at this time, so the eagles acted on their own and came over directly when they heard the noise. The first eagle cry came from Shan Dao. The person on Shan Dao's back was Gu La. "Ha, Xiao Xian, I didn't expect it to be you." Gu La was surprised when he saw Cha-Cha. He didn't recognize Cha-Cha either. Only when he flew closer did he recognize Xiao Xian on the eagle's back. "I specially came to invite you this time." Xiao Xian let Cha-Cha fly closer and threw an animal skin scroll to Gu La. Gu La withdrew his gaze from Cha-Cha and took the animal skin roll. He opened it and read it quickly. However, as he read, the smile on his face froze as if he didn't understand it. He read it again from the beginning, and again to make sure that he didn't read it wrong. Gu La found it even more difficult to understand. Didn't Yanjiao leave their ancestral land because of the disaster? Didn't they migrate to another place to start a new life? Shouldn't a tribe that was forced to migrate be in a difficult situation? Why were they building a trading point and holding a banquet now? If they weren't doing well, why would they do such a thing? He thought Xiao Xian came to ask for help, but things were unexpected. No matter what the truth was, no matter how many questions he had, now was not the time to talk about it. "You must be tired from the journey. Why don't you rest in our tribe?" Gu La asked, putting away the animal skin scroll. "Thank you," Xiao Xian said. Gu La patted Shan Dao. "Let's go back." Cha-Cha followed. Chapter 611. The Hui tribe's totem looked like an abstract curling cloud. This tribe was also located at a higher elevation, close to the clouds. It belonged to the plateau region. The horses they raised galloped on the plateau. Xiao Xian could see a large group of very energetic horses from the sky. Even if he didn't go down to take a closer look, he could feel that the quality of the horses here was higher than the ones in the Feng tribe. Gu La still didn't slow down, flying towards the mountains not far away. Most of the people of the Hui tribe lived on the mountains, just like their totem, surrounded by clouds. The part that belonged to the Hui tribe was almost the highest part of the area. The mountains that stretched into the distance seemed to suddenly rise up here. The mountains were covered in snow all year round, and the mountainside was surrounded by clouds. This was where the people of the Hui tribe lived. There were some eagles flying around the mountains. Many of them weren't big, and were considered young in the group of giant mountain eagles. Some of them flew over curiously, but probably felt Cha-Cha's bad mood, so they cried out and flew away. They flapped their wings and flew through the clouds, dispersing the white fog. The air swirled around their wings, and the white fog also swirled. Then, a long tail appeared and gradually dispersed. Gula brought Xiao Xian to an area on the mountainside. There were many stone houses built around the mountainside, and some were directly dug into the mountain to live in. Xiao Xian saw many people of the Hui tribe skillfully climbing the mountain walls. There were children training. There weren't many adults around, but there were more eagles. Even if they were just young mountain eagles, they could still catch a child. When the eagles saw children sliding down the mountain walls, they flew over and caught them. Then, they lifted them up and put them down on a raised rock platform. This platform was specially made by the people of the Hui tribe. It was for the children to practice climbing on the mountain walls to rest. Looking at the situation over there, Xiao Xian felt that Cha-Cha seemed a little hesitant. Just now, his flying rhythm changed for a moment. There were no other strange occurrences in the surroundings. There were eagles flying over, but those eagles had already flown over. Even if Cha-Cha had a reaction, it shouldn't have appeared only now. There wasn't anything strange below, there were no other eagles around. Xiao Xian looked up and his eyes narrowed. He realized that on the mountain where the Hui tribe was, near the top of the mountain, near the border of the snow, there was something inconspicuous. Because its fur was too similar to the color of the mountain, if it didn't move, Xiao Xian wouldn't have noticed it. Was that an eagle? It seemed to be different from the others. It looked like a ball. The mountain was not flat, and there were many steep and dangerous places on the mountain. It was very rare for that thing to be able to stabilize itself on that cliff and not fall. "We're here." Gula asked Shan Dao to stop at a mountain path. This was a path dug out by the Hui tribe. It was the only path that could be used on the entire mountain. If you wanted to go up the mountain, you could only climb. The road around the mountain was not flat, but it was wide enough. Even Cha-Cha could rest on the road. It was believed that when the road was first built, the people of the Hui tribe had considered the possibility of the giant mountain eagle resting. "It's here." Gula pointed to a cave not far away. Xiao Xian looked over. The entrance of the cave was very big, about 10 meters high and 8 meters wide. It was in the shape of an inverted U. There was a carving on the wall above the entrance. It was the Hui tribe's Hui character, but it was written with cloud patterns. It looked like curled clouds, and it was very similar to the Hui tribe's totem. "Our shaman and chief are there," Gula said. In the Hui tribe, that cave was only used by the shaman and chief. It was like a mansion, and only the chief of the tribe was qualified to live in it. The people inside must have received the news in advance. When Xiao Xian landed, there were already people walking out of the cave. Xiao Xian knew the elder of the Hui tribe, He was waiting at the door. "Welcome to the Hui tribe. The shaman and chief are inside. Let's go in and talk." He smiled. Xiao Xian followed He to the entrance of the cave, and then he turned back and said to Cha-Cha, "You go play by yourself, and get to know the other eagles." "This is..." He looked at the eagle behind Xiao Xian with a puzzled expression. "It's Cha-Cha. It's him. He's back." He and Gula were both very surprised, but they soon understood. To be able to enter Eagle Mountain again under such circumstances and successfully come out, it was no wonder it had grown so big. It would probably continue to grow. The effects of Eagle Mountain's metamorphosis had not yet fully manifested, and it would take time to prove it. "Congratulations," she said enviously. Giant mountain eagles usually only went to Eagle Mountain when they had no other choice. It was rare for Cha-Cha to go to Eagle Mountain and come out successfully. However, Cha-Cha, who was stared at by He, She and Gu La, did not even look at them. Even when Xiao Xian spoke, Cha-Cha did not respond. Instead, he looked up at the mountain as if he was on guard. Xiao Xian followed Cha-Cha's gaze. Swoosh, some pebbles and small stones rolled down from the mountain wall. At the same time, there was a rustling sound on the mountain. Compared with Cha-Cha and other eagles, the rustling sound was more crisp and tender, but it was different from the cry of ordinary young eagles. Seeing this, the surrounding Hui tribesmen's expressions changed. The next moment, they ran away. A black shadow fell from above, accompanied by the sound of a large number of pebbles and small stones sliding down. The fluttering fluff was blown away by the wind. Cha-Cha and Shan Dao, who was also resting on the road, used their wings to block in front of their bodies, as if putting up a shield to block the flying stones and fluff that made them unhappy. He, She and Gu La raised their hands to push away the feathers in front of their eyes. When they looked over, their faces turned pale. Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian, are you okay? Gu La hurried over. The figure that fell from the mountain just happened to land where Xiao Xian was standing. This made the surrounding people's jaws drop. Some people's faces were already filled with horror. They covered their faces, as if they were too embarrassed to look in that direction. He, She also went over nervously. However, there was no smell of blood. He should not be dead, right? The shaman and chief who had just come out of the cave saw this scene. The shaman was so scared that he dropped his cane. If the Grand Elder of Yanjiao was killed here, how could they give the Yanjiao a satisfactory explanation? Fortunately, soon, Xiao Xian's voice came from below. Damn, this guy is really heavy. With the sound, the falling shadow was lifted up a little. Xiao Xian raised his hands and looked at them. He realized that his hands seemed to be holding claws. Those that could grow such claws were usually birds of prey, especially ferocious birds. Looking carefully, there were feathers flying everywhere. They were from the feathers of young birds. Young birds? Xiao Xian thought of the ball he saw near the top of the mountain when he arrived. He lifted his palm and moved it back and forth, weighing its weight. It was really heavy. So heavy, how could it fly in the future? Also, where did such a big young bird come from? It must have been born not long ago. It could not fly and had not changed its feathers. The faces of the surrounding Hui tribesmen couldn't help but twitch when they saw this scene. He lifted it up. Not only did he lift it up, he even weighed it twice. Was this Yanjiao? The people who didn't go with the expedition team had the deepest impression of the Yanjiao people. No matter what others said, it was not as good as seeing it with their own eyes. The Yanjiao people were really strong. No one in their tribe had been hit before. After all, everyone was paying attention. However, some stupid giant mountain eagles had been hit while resting on the road. There was once an eagle as big as Shan Dao that was smashed until its bones were broken. It couldn't fly for a long time. Since then, the surrounding giant mountain eagles would avoid it whenever they saw it. But they didn't expect that the Yanjiao person who was smashed in the face was not only unharmed, but also lifted it up and weighed it twice. The Yanjiao had monstrous strength. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the young eagle held by Xiao Xian seemed to feel that something was wrong. It looked down, but because it was too fat and round, it rolled down. The young eagle that had rolled around on the ground shook its feathers, causing a lot of fluff to fly in the air. It was a young eagle not much smaller than Cha-Cha. Even if Shan Dao stood next to the young eagle, he still looked thin. It was rare to see such a big young eagle. This young eagle's eyes seemed to have been drawn with ink. It had a circle of black feathers, different from a Cha-Cha. The giant mountain eagle's feathers were not exactly the same color, but most young eagles inherited the characteristics of their parents. It was understandable that they were different from a Cha-Cha. After rolling for a while, the young eagle stood up and looked back at Xiao Xian. It didn't care about Cha-Cha's vigilant eyes, nor did it look at the surrounding warriors and other eagles. It opened its big round eyes and looked at the mountain wall again. Then it moved its claws and walked over step by step. It was only a young eagle and didn't have the ability to fly. It hadn't hunted by itself yet, but its claws were unusually sharp. When it walked on the ground, it left marks on the rocky mountain path. When it reached the mountain wall, the young eagle flapped its wings and jumped up. It grabbed the mountain wall and many small stones fell. Its seemingly heavy body was firmly nailed to the mountain wall. "What is it doing?" Xiao Xian asked. "It's practicing." She looked at the young eagle on the mountain wall. His gentle gaze contained reverence, and his tone was full of emotion. Young giant mountain eagles start practicing soon after they are born. They practice climbing, flying, and the use of their wings, beak and claws. Every young eagle has to go through thousands of practice sessions. Those who are timid and incompetent may lose their lives because of all kinds of accidents during practice. However, it is precisely because of this cruel elimination that the soaring giant mountain eagle exists today. She told Xiao Xian that the young eagles might break their wings in front of them during training. However, no matter how sad the people of the Hui tribe were, they wouldn't interfere. They couldn't be compassionate towards young eagles during training. This was something everyone in the Hui tribe had been warned about since they were young. It wasn't that they were heartless, but it was for the good of the young eagles. If they wanted to become qualified giant mountain eagles in the future and have the ability to go to Eagle Mountain, they had to work hard when they were still young. Otherwise, when they encountered the first bottleneck, they would die for various reasons before they could go to Eagle Mountain. Even if they could make it to Eagle Mountain, the chances of them coming out alive would be lower than other eagles. Therefore, all the blood, sweat, and toil now were all for the future trip to Eagle Mountain. Giant mountain eagles are always challenging themselves. Even if they fell countless times and suffered countless injuries, they wouldn't be scared. They would climb up and fight again. This was why the Hui tribe worshipped the giant mountain eagles. They used the eagle's behavior to motivate themselves. The fluffy little bird moved up the mountain wall step by step. It looked like it would fall at any moment, but it was still firmly nailed to the wall and moved up little by little. From time to time, small pebbles and small stones would roll down. The people of the Hui tribe were already used to this. They had people in charge of cleaning up the fallen pebbles and stones on the road every day. This was the norm in the Hui tribe. Everyone in the Hui tribe looked at the climbing figure with obvious admiration and encouragement. However, the young eagle couldn't see it. "I have a question," Xiao Xian suddenly asked. "Go ahead." She looked away. "It was just born, right?" Xiao Xian asked. "That's right." The shaman of the Hui tribe came over and answered the question. "It broke out of its shell in the past winter. It was born in the coldest time of the winter. No wonder it had such thick feathers. When it shook, it flew like willow catkins." Xiao Xian thought. "It's still a young bird. It shouldn't have grown much. Was it very big when it was born?" Xiao Xian asked again. "Very big," the shaman of the Hui tribe said proudly. It was worth being proud to have such an eagle. "How big was the eagle that laid such a big egg?" Xiao Xian asked. "The eagle that gave birth to it?" The shaman of the Hui tribe looked at Xiao Xian. He seemed to find this question very interesting. He narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Haven't you seen it before?" "I've seen it before." Xiao Xian was puzzled. He quickly thought of something and took out the stone card. He pointed at it and looked at the smiling shaman. "Is it that one?" The shaman of the Hui tribe nodded. "Yes." "Damn. That was the difference." "How big was Cha-Cha when it was born?" "It was not much bigger than an egg, right? It could easily crush it with one hand. But look at the one in front of him. It could easily crush a cow." Xiao Xian remembered what Gu La had explained to him about giant mountain eagles. The higher the level of the giant mountain eagle, the bigger the baby eagle, and vice versa. The lower the level of the eagle, the smaller the eagle's egg. No wonder Cha-Cha was unhappy with it. It was like a poor loser seeing a rich second generation with a golden spoon in his mouth. It was inevitable that he would feel unhappy. Its starting point was too high. It was much higher than other giant mountain eagles. No wonder the other giant mountain eagles were afraid of it. However, the baby eagle did not care about the stairs around it. It didn't care what they thought. It was like a lonely genius. Chapter 6:12. It could be said that the Hui tribe was the closest place to the giant mountain eagles. Perhaps no other tribe could see so many giant mountain eagles and observe their growth from birth. Xiao Xian's understanding of the giant mountain eagles was limited to what he heard from other people and his experience raising Cha-Cha. However, Cha-Cha had too many special characteristics and could not be considered a normal giant mountain eagle. Here, Xiao Xian could understand them better. Looking away, Xiao Xian no longer looked at the baby eagle that was still climbing up the wall. He walked into the cave with the shaman and chief of the Hui tribe. Inside the cave, there were illuminating crystals, water moon stones, and other glowing crystals. There was no need to rely on torches. Gula told the others about Xiao Xian's intentions. Just like Gula, the shaman and chief were shocked. They thought that Xiao Xian was here to ask for help, but they did not expect Xiao Xian to be here to invite them. Before winter, when our tribe's expedition team came back, they brought back a piece of news. They said they heard about the Flaming Horn Fleet and the Flaming River Trading Point, the chief of the Hui tribe recalled. At that time, they didn't believe that the Flaming Horns could live a good life. Building a trading point wasn't difficult for a tribe like theirs. That was why when they heard the news from the expedition team, they didn't take it to heart. They thought it was just an exaggeration. But now, since the Flaming Horns could send out an invitation to a banquet, it meant that they really had the ability to host a banquet. Perhaps the Flaming River Trading Point the expedition team mentioned was different from what they expected. At that time, the Hui tribe had thought about going to Yanjiao before winter to send some supplies. After all, Yanjiao had moved again and had nothing left. Winter would be difficult for them. However, when the messenger met the Yanjiao fleet on the way, they were rejected and only said that they could have a good life. They even invited the Hui tribe to visit the Flaming River Trading Point when they were free and even gave them a map. At that time, winter was approaching and the Hui tribe's team didn't go over. During this time, they also had something to discuss with the Yanjiao people. We mentioned you this morning, so we wanted to send a team to follow the map you gave us. I didn't expect you to be here already. The shaman of the Hui tribe said. Hearing this, Xiao Xian glanced at the people around him. In addition to the shaman and chief, as well as Gula and He-Shi, there were a few people he hadn't seen before. But he could guess from some of the subtle actions and words around him that these people's status in the Hui tribe should not be low. There was no phone here, so they couldn't inform them in advance. Xiao Xian didn't inform them when he came, which meant that these people didn't know that Xiao Xian was coming at this time. But these people were all gathered in the central meeting room of the Hui tribe. What happened? Xiao Xian asked. He didn't expect Xiao Xian to realize the problem so quickly. The shaman of the Hui tribe was stunned and then turned his head to look at He-Shi behind him. He-Shi nodded slightly and then fell behind, as if he was guarding here to prevent others from entering. Come with me. The shaman of the Hui tribe led Xiao Xian into the cave. There were many stone rooms of different sizes. Some were used to store things, some for discussion, and some for other purposes. Most of these stone rooms had wooden doors. Except for the Yanjiao tribe who often used stone doors, other tribes mostly used wooden doors. As for the stone door, it wasn't easy for ordinary people to open it. When they came to one of the doors, the shaman of the Hui tribe walked forward and untied a wooden bolt tied to the wooden door. He raised his hand and pushed the wooden door open. Before the shaman of the Hui tribe opened the door, Xiao Xian had a very strange feeling. It didn't seem like there were people inside, but there was something similar to the power of the fire seed. It was very strange and different from the fire seed aura of other normal tribesmen. Even after the rain tribe and the drumming tribe merged their fire seeds, they didn't have this kind of aura. Even the robbers who merged their fire seeds early and the people on the other side of the sea didn't have this kind of aura. Different tribes had different fire seeds, so the aura of the fire seed was naturally different. Some gave people a burning feeling, like the fire seed of the Yanjiao, while others were cool, like the rain tribe and the drumming tribe. But the aura inside was completely different from the burning fire seed aura. It was also obviously different from the cool aura of the rain tribe and the drumming tribe. It had a strange kind of gloominess. From the aura of the fire seed, Xiao Xian could be sure that he had never seen a tribesman with this kind of aura. It was so cold that it didn't seem like a living person. Ka 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 ka, the wooden door was gradually pushed open. Without the thick wooden door, the aura was more obvious. It wasn't as strong as normal people, but Xiao Xian could clearly feel it. At the same time as the abnormal fire seed aura, there was also an unpleasant stench. The people in front moved aside, and Xiao Xian saw the situation inside. On the floor of the stone room, there was a flat plank about 3 meters long and 2 meters wide. And on the plank, there was a person lying on it. No, to be exact, it was just the outline of a person. It was obviously different from a normal person. And Xiao Xian couldn't hear his breathing. A dead person. Xiao Xian walked forward and approached the plank, carefully observing this strange person. That person looked shriveled. His exposed skin was greenish-black and had many fine wrinkles, like grapes that had been air-dried. Looking at his face, because of the shrinkage, his original appearance had become blurred. His eyes were deeply sunken, as if he had lost his eyeballs. This is... Xiao Xian looked at the Hui tribe's shaman and the others who looked serious. This is what we brought back when we went to the desert to investigate. The Hui tribe's chief said. Because they had eagles that could fly long distances, it was more convenient for the people of the Hui tribe to go to many places. Last year, they heard about the changes in the desert and couldn't help but send people to check it out. As a result, they met some strange people. At that time, we lost a lot of people, and in the end, we could only bring back this one. Thinking of this, the Hui tribe's chief felt a knot in his chest. Those strange people in the desert were too difficult to deal with. They don't know pain, fear, or life. They are very cruel. The Hui tribe's chief said. Xiao Xian also remembered what Yang Sui said about the desert. Those monsters might be referring to this one lying here. Was it like this when you brought it back? Xiao Xian pointed at the person on the plank and asked the Hui tribe's chief. There are some changes, but it's more or less like this. But it started to rot after we brought it back. Even if we put it in an ice cave, it's useless. Now it's rotting faster and faster. The Hui tribe's chief was distressed. If other Yanjiao warriors came here, they might not say it so easily. But since it was Xiao Xian, the great elder of Yanjiao, they didn't hide it from him. We tried all kinds of methods, but still couldn't stop it. Every tribe had a way to store meat, but it was useless on this person. The person was still rotting, and it was rotting faster and faster. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before there was only a pile of rotten meat left. No wonder Xiao Xian felt confused when he looked at this person, because it had already started to rot. The Hui tribe's shaman sighed helplessly. Not only that, I also feel a strange fire seed. It's not strong, but it's there. But compared to when he was first brought here, the fire seed in him is weaker. The shaman was more sensitive to fire seed energy than anyone else. Even if the Hui tribe couldn't feel it, he could still feel it. Did Rock Hill City make them? Xiao Xian asked. I think so. Other than Rock Hill City, I can't think of anyone else who could do this. In the desert, only Rock Hill City had the ability to make these monsters. Now we can only hope that these monsters aren't used by Rock Hill City to deal with the tribesmen. The Hui tribe's shaman was worried. The tribesmen had always treated the slave masters as their class enemy. They were always on guard against anything the slave masters did. They always felt that everything the slave masters did was a threat to the tribesmen. But the slave masters had many things that the tribesmen desired, such as gold tools and skills. Maybe Rock Hill City made them to deal with the people on the other side of the sea. Xiao Xian said. The people of Rock Hill City have a grudge with the people on the other side of the sea. Also, Rock Hill City should have been prepared for the disaster. Everything they did was in preparation for the disaster. Since the Hui tribe didn't hide anything from Xiao Xian also shared some information. The Hui tribe knew that half of the people in Yanjiao came from the other side of the sea, but they didn't know about the grudges between the slave masters. Xiao Xian could only briefly explain what he knew and his own guesses. As soon as they heard that there were more slave masters on the other side of the sea, and that the two continents were closer, the tribesmen's first reaction was to be on high alert. It was as if they reflexively raised their spines. But after listening to Xiao Xian, it seemed like the slave masters on both sides had a grudge against each other. This was good. They hoped that the two sides would fight. That would be a war between the slave masters. The tribesmen wouldn't participate. Very good, very good. Thinking of this, the people of the Hui tribe felt a little comforted. Xiao Xian stayed at the Hui tribe for 2 days, then rode on Cha-Cha and left for the Tian Shan tribe. Xiao Xian wasn't as friendly towards the Tian Shan tribe. Both sides were on guard against each other. He only went over to send an invitation. As for whether the Tian Shan tribe would go, he didn't care. The animal skin scroll he used as an invitation wasn't as exquisite as the one he gave to the Hui tribe. After settling the matters on the grasslands, Xiao Xian didn't waste any time and went straight back. On the way back, he met a few Yanjiao warriors who went to invite the other big tribes in the central region. Just as Xiao Xian was thinking about the strange people in the desert and the upcoming Flaming River Trading Point feast, invitations were sent out one by one in the Flaming River region. Although the news of Yanjiao hosting a feast at the Flaming River Trading Point had already spread, and some tribes who knew about it, if they wanted to enter the heart of the Flaming River Trading Point, they needed an invitation. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get a seat and would have to find an empty spot. Even if they could eat and drink to their heart's content, they wouldn't be able to live up to their reputation. Those who weren't thick-skinned enough would feel embarrassed. That was why during this period of time, many tribesmen were looking forward to receiving an invitation from Yanjiao. Somewhere in the Flaming River region, in an inconspicuous mountain, people could be seen peeking out from a narrow crevice. His big feet hooked onto the vines as he swung towards the tribe. He waved an animal skin roll in his hand. This is it. This is it. Wow, it's even made from fearsome beast skin. It's really made from fearsome beast skin. As he spoke, Abuli suddenly stopped. He hung upside down on the mountain wall covered in vines and sniffed the animal skin roll in his hand. This must be the skin from a fearsome beast's buttocks. Chapter 613. Other than being good at finding crystals, the drumming tribesmen had another skill. They could tell which part of the beast the hide came from just by smelling it. Others could tell by looking or touching, but they could tell by smelling it. Their accuracy was at least 70%. When they traded with the Flaming Horns at the Flaming River Trading Point, Abuli didn't use this method because the beast hides they traded were too big. He could tell where they were at a glance, so he didn't need to use this method to identify the beast hides. Most tribesmen liked the hide from the back of beasts because it was more elastic and the hide on the buttocks was harder. If tribesmen who hunted fearsome beasts often placed a small piece of hide there, they might be able to tell by looking at it. However, to the drumming tribesmen who rarely came into contact with fearsome beasts, they could only guess by smelling it. I wonder if Yanjiao specially selected the hide when they gave it to us, Abuli muttered unhappily. If the Yanjiao people who made the hide knew about this, they would definitely cry foul. They did not think too much when they made the hide this time. They just cut it into smaller pieces and made it into an invitation card. Who would have thought that the drumming tribesman could tell where the hide came from just by smelling it? Although the hide in his hand was from a fearsome beast's buttocks, Abuli still carefully rolled it up and kept it close to his body. This was a pass to eat and drink at the Flaming River trading point. Without this, they would not be able to eat and drink. After his excitement died down, Abuli waved his hand and waved away the people who came over to look at the pass. He thought of a problem. There would definitely be many tribes going there, and the drumming tribe was just one of them. Under these circumstances, if they received the invitation, they would have to prepare some gifts. The notes left behind by their ancestors mentioned something similar. Abuli had specially looked through them when he came back from the Flaming River trading point during winter. He had already thought of gifts. There were many crystals hidden in the caves owned by all the chiefs. One of them was glowing, so he could bring it over. After making up his mind, Abuli led his men into the cave and brought out the light purple crystal. It was as tall as a person, and one could see it shining brightly in the dark. Of course, among his collection, the most beautiful and valuable things were still kept in his own hands. He would not give them away just like that. The one that he decided to take out as a gift already made many people feel the pinch. How many resources could he exchange for with that? He actually gave it away as a gift for the tribe's previous exchange. Although Abuli felt the pinch, he knew that this was the best course of action. Although their tribe was small and did not interact with many people, they still understood some principles. When they met with other tribes in public, they represented the face of their tribe. No matter how greedy he was, as the leader of the tribe, there were some bottom lines that he couldn't cross. They could embarrass themselves, but they couldn't embarrass the entire drumming tribe. Their deceased ancestors were watching them. He had received the invitation and prepared the gifts. Now, there was only one thing left for Abuli to do. Alright, who's coming with me this time? Abuli looked around. As soon as Abuli finished speaking, the crowd burst into an uproar. Me? I'll go. Leader, look at me. Me too. My feet are the biggest. Of course, I'll go. Nonsense, the leader's feet are the biggest. Chief, he's provoking you. Beat him up. Bullshit, when did I say that my feet are bigger than the chief's? I mean, other than the chief's. Chief, he wants to compete with you. The people of the drumming tribe obviously had bigger feet than other tribes. Their toes were also very special. They were long and very flexible, as if they were their second pair of hands. Moreover, in the drumming tribe, big feet were the real deal. Many people in the drumming tribe competed with each other since they were young. Whoever had bigger feet would be the boss, and those with smaller feet would be the little brother. This was because many times in the drumming tribe, people with bigger feet were much faster than those with smaller toes when climbing and shuttling through the forest. When they encountered danger, they had a higher chance of escaping successfully. The people of the drumming tribe did not like to fight, but they liked to compete with their feet to show off their bigger feet. Hence, at times like this, the rules were brought out again. The people with bigger feet were shouting loudly and confidently. Those who were just complaining about why they had to give gifts immediately forgot about everything else and waved their hands at Abuli. Those who were standing at the back of the crowd and couldn't squeeze in jumped up and down. Some even stood on their heads and waved their big feet, hoping that Abuli would notice them and pick them over. Some people didn't like to interact with strangers and didn't like to leave the mountains. They liked to stay in the corner of their tribe all day long. If Abuli brought people out to trade, they might not be interested, but this time was different. They were going out to eat. They heard that they could eat as much as they wanted, wild beast meat, fearsome beast meat, etc. They had everything. How could they miss out on such a free meal? Abuli was in a dilemma. To him, other than the people who often went out to trade with him, he still had to bring some food. TSK, in the past, when he said he wanted to go out to trade, this group of people acted like they had met a beast. They came up with all sorts of excuses and didn't even want to take a step out. But now, they were all so enthusiastic. Abuli squatted on a half-polished crystal and scratched his messy hair. He slapped his thigh and said, "How about this?" The people who were arguing until their faces were red suddenly stopped. The entire place quieted down and everyone looked at Abuli, waiting for his decision. "You guys," Abuli pointed a finger at the people around him and said, "You guys fight. The winner will follow me." Those who were too weak would be embarrassed if they went out, and strength wasn't limited to the size of their feet. Besides, Abuli felt that the more capable a person was, the more they could eat. There was a limit to the number of people he could bring. Since that was the case, he had to bring those who could eat a lot. That way, he wouldn't lose out. Their ancestors had said that they could eat anything, but they couldn't lose out. "How can you use this method to choose?" one of the Ji tribesmen shouted. The next moment, he kicked away the person beside him who was still in a daze. Because of this, the people around them also reacted and started fighting. Abuli squatted on a crystal next to them and looked over. He had a serious look on his face as he scanned every corner with his critical eyes. Every time Abuli looked over, the people over there would fight with extra vigor. While the Ji tribe was preparing to head to the Flaming River trading point, the other tribes along the river had also received invitations from the Yanjiao people. The tribes who went to the Flaming River trading point before winter were all invited. The Ji tribe was, of course, on the list. Plus, they had crystals. The Rain tribe, Drumming tribe, Pu tribe and other tribes that Yanjiao were familiar with had also received invitations. As for the other tribes that hid well, they still had to spend time looking for them. Days passed. Xiao Xian had already returned to the Yanjiao headquarters with the other people who had gone further away to deliver the invitations. Xiao Xian had also told the others about the strange person that the Hui tribe had brought back to the Yanjiao headquarters. However, to the Yanjiao people, at this time, they didn't care about the desert. They would let the slave masters settle their own problems. The Yanjiao people still had to prepare for the first banquet after 1,000 years. The wine and other drinks had been brewed long ago. Xiao Xian had supervised the production. After returning from the grasslands, he went to take a look again. Based on his own requirements, it was still a long way off. After all, it was mass-produced and the conditions were limited. Even a small mistake in the middle could cause a qualitative change. However, the standards here were already not bad. At least, many Yanjiao people thought it was good enough. They also prepared a lot of vicious beast meat. Some of them couldn't be stored for a long time, so they tied them up with their last breath, just like when they were on the other side of the sea. Those vicious beasts that were less aggressive and didn't pose much of a threat were kept first. When it was time to eat, they would slaughter them. "Is everything ready?" Xiao Xian asked Jing Luo. While he was gone, Jing Luo and Ao, the two retired chiefs, had been in charge. Because the banquet was held in the Flaming River trading point, most of the decorations were done there. The two chiefs, Duo Kong, Ta and the rest all lived in the Flaming River trading point so they didn't have to travel back and forth every day. The bottles and jars of gold that had been found in the Wanshi tribe were also taken out one by one. The Flaming Horns originally planned to reforge these useless things, but after they decided to hold the banquet, they didn't do it for the time being. Instead, they cleaned these metal wares and prepared to use them to store things. Although they weren't very practical, they could still be used to show off when necessary. Rare items were expensive. On this mainland, gold was still very rare because there were no core seeds here. The only core seeds were brought over from the other side of the sea by the people in the desert. There were no core seeds on this continent, so before the battle in the desert, most of the tribesmen had never seen gold before. It was only after the reshuffling of the cards in the desert and the escaping slave masters brought gold out that some of the tribesmen saw those shiny gold items. However, there were still many tribesmen, especially tribes like the Drumming and Drumming tribes, stayed in their tribes all year round. Even if they went out, they only moved around nearby and didn't like to interact with outsiders. That was why they had never seen gold before. Other than the rare gold, Jing Luo and Ao decorated the banquet hall with Yanjiao characteristics. Xiao Xian, who was already mentally prepared, wasn't surprised when he walked into the Flaming River trading point. The main venue was still in the heart of the Flaming River trading point. There was a horizontal, U-shaped area with tall stone buildings on both sides. Large fangs hung on the walls of the stone buildings. The skulls of the beasts that had been boiled were polished until they were smooth and shiny. When yang guang shone on them, they reflected a dazzling light. Only the beasts' mouths were mostly left untouched. Even the blood stains on them were not wiped away. Some of the blood stains on the fangs were even washed off during the boiling process. However, after they were moved over and decorated, Ao purposely got people to wipe the remaining blood on the fangs again. Because they were all too familiar with hunting beasts, they wiped the blood on the fangs naturally. It didn't look like someone had painted the fangs on them. At first glance, it looked like a fierce beast that had just fought in the forest and was about to bite them. Some of the beast heads hanging on the walls weren't boiled. These were the beasts that had been hunted recently. After they were processed, their fur was preserved and their eyeballs were remade with resin. The Rain tribesmen helped them make these. They were good at making fake things. Perhaps they hadn't discovered this skill in the past. Now that they were forced by life, the Rain tribesmen picked up the skills of their ancestors and discovered this skill. The fur of ferocious beasts was tougher than that of ordinary beasts. Even if it was boiled, as long as it was not boiled for a long time, it would still preserve a large amount of fur. Therefore, the head of a beast that had not been boiled and only had its external appearance preserved most of its skin. Even the steel needle-like whiskers were well preserved and could be replaced after being removed. According to one of the warriors who processed the beast heads, he cut off a whisker on one of the beast heads. Before he replaced it, he used the whisker to poke his hand. If it weren't for the thick skin of the totemic warriors, it would have pierced a bloody hole in his hand. Other than these beast heads, there were some beast bones embedded in the stone walls on both sides of the long U-shaped hall. A long, winding skeleton of a reptilian beast was embedded in the stone wall. This was installed by Zheng Luo himself. These were the fearsome beasts he hunted himself. The small bones weren't complete, but the main ones were pieced together and embedded in the stone wall. They weren't pieced together rigidly but restored to how the fearsome beasts looked when he hunted them. Even without the skin and muscles, only the white bones were left. But just these bones were enough to show the danger of hunting. The fearsome beast's aura lingered on the white bones. People who were close to the bones could clearly feel the murderous aura in the bones. Ordinary ferocious beasts would only have bones left after eating them, but ferocious beasts were like murderous weapons that still had a murderous aura. Just by being placed there, it was enough to make people feel a bone-chilling cold. If people in peacetime came here, they would probably be scared out of their wits. But in this kind of environment, this was the embodiment of high class. Xiao Xian helped with the remaining unfinished details. While Yanjiao was busy, on the mainland, all the tribes who received Yanjiao's invitation formed a group. They followed the simple but clear map on the back of the invitation and set off towards the trading point. Chief, how capable do you think the Yanjiao people are? They just went through the cataclysm not long ago and now they're setting up a Flaming River trading point. Where is this Flaming River trading point? Why haven't we heard of it before? Chu Su held the invitation in his hand and looked at the map on the back. The chief of the Mang tribe glanced at Chu Su but didn't say anything. He was also curious. How did Yanjiao manage to establish themselves so quickly? It shouldn't be much, right? It definitely can't compare to our trading point, someone from the Eight Limbs tribe heard Chu Su and said. The Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe both received Yanjiao's invitation this time. They were both surprised and curious. Flaming River trading point. Flaming River? Where was it? Chapter 614. Other than the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, a few other tribes from the central region also set off. When it came to banquets, experienced tribes knew that they had to compete at banquets. Battles without killing intent were everywhere. It wasn't always a battle of strength. There were many ways to suppress the other party, such as clothing, accessories, tools, and so on. In terms of clothing, each tribe had its own characteristics. It didn't have to be ferocious beast skin or smooth silk. For example, the Mang tribe preferred to wear clothes made of plants that were similar to the color of bamboo. Their accessories were also made of bamboo or jade. The jade that symbolized their status was also different. People from other tribes could tell their status in the Mang tribe by looking at the jade ornaments they wore. But this time, all the people from the Mang tribe had jade ornaments above the half-ring level on their waists. That was to say, this time, the Mang tribe's team was basically made up of senior totem warriors, and their status in the tribe was not low. The Mang tribe produced a lot of jade. Many people had imitated the shape of the jade ornaments that the Mang tribesmen wore. However, the jade ornaments worn by the real Mang tribesmen looked simple, but they were very special. They were not carefully carved, but there were clear green lines like bamboo. This kind of jade was called Mang jade, and it was exclusive to the Mang tribesmen. Even if other tribesmen obtained this kind of Mang jade through some means, they would not dare to take it out in the open because the Mang tribesmen would not allow it. The Eight Limbs tribe, who were allied with the Mang tribe, wore their tribe's famous silk clothing. For this trip to the Flaming River, they all wore clothes that they didn't usually wear. This was the only way to show off their status and to compete with the other big tribes. This was a clash of the tribe's pride. The Mang tribesmen mostly rode on horses, but there were also a few strange beasts. Their fur was dark brown, black, or white. If Xiao Xian was here, he would be shocked to see that the Mang tribe's leaders were riding on beasts that looked like pandas. The Eight Limbs tribesmen mostly rode on large spiders. These large spiders had different colors, long and short fur, thick and thin legs, and even the number of eyes. Some of them looked like a ball of fur, while others looked like they were pieced together by a few bamboo poles, and would be blown away by the wind. Either of these two tribes would be very eye-catching. Now that they were traveling together, they were even more eye-catching. Wherever they passed, almost everyone who saw them would be curious. Where were the people of the Mang tribe and the people of the Eight Limbs tribe going? Moreover, it was in such a formation. It didn't seem like they were going to war. What was their purpose? Those who couldn't suppress their curiosity and had nothing better to do followed from a distance, wanting to find out the answer. If they followed too closely, they were afraid of being caught by the people of the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, so they could only follow behind at a certain distance. The distance from the central region to the Flaming River region was quite far. Along the way, more and more curious people gathered, but no one dared to go up and ask. Those who were brave enough joined the tailing team. Both tribes knew about this, but they weren't interested in the people behind them. Plus, they actually wanted to bring more people over to watch the show. If Yanjiao really wasn't doing well, then they could have more people to help spread the news. In most tribesmen's hearts, the central region was definitely the most prosperous. The trading point was also the most prosperous in the central region and had the most variety of goods. People from the borders of the mainland would travel thousands of miles to the trading point there to trade. If they could prove that the Flaming River trading point was just a small and messy place, no one would go there even if Yanjiao did their best to spread the news. It would save them a lot of effort. The Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe even met the Longboat tribe along the way. However, the Longboat tribe people were all on boats, so the two sides only traveled for a short distance before splitting up again. There were shortcuts on land and there were shortcuts on land. You can use boats at the Flaming River trading point. After parting ways with the Longboat tribe, some of the Mang tribesmen were puzzled. Isn't it called the Flaming River trading point? If there's a river, of course you can use boats, Huang Yi said with a frown. He didn't believe that Yanjiao could establish a foothold in such a short time. Even if Yanjiao could establish a foothold and start a new life, he didn't think that the Flaming River trading point would be better than the few large trading points in the central region. Perhaps all of this was just Yanjiao's way of making their presence known. I wonder if Yanjiao will take out all their money this time. Someone laughed. Who cares? When the time comes, the Yanjiao people will be the ones worrying. We just have to eat and drink to our heart's content, someone from the Eight Limbs tribe also replied. From the central region where most of the tribes lived, they walked along the route. There were very few people around, and sometimes they wouldn't even see a single outsider after a whole day. The surrounding soil wasn't very good either, especially the places far away from the river. The soil was very hard and not suitable for planting. There were only some barren hills with weeds growing in the vicinity. There weren't even any trees that could bear fruit. Even if there were, they were mostly short and had sparse leaves. No wonder there weren't any tribes living here. Desolation. This was what everyone who passed through this place was thinking. At this time, the Mang and Eight Limbs tribesmen couldn't help but feel proud. Their ancestors were indeed good at finding good places. The soil in their own territories was much better than here. However, gradually, there was no obvious change in the terrain, but the landscape began to change. The surrounding trees gradually increased, taller, and denser. The surrounding mountains were no longer monotonous weeds, but lush forests. The further they went, the denser the forests on the mountains. Even in places far away from water sources, the forests were more full of green vitality than before. There were some people moving around nearby. They were probably from a small tribe, hiding in the woods on the mountain. This place seems pretty good. Chu Sug casually plucked a leaf from a shrub and peeled it open to check the moisture content. Although the soil wasn't very fertile, they could still plant some crops if they wanted to. It couldn't compare to the farms in the central region, but it was enough to sustain a small tribe. The others didn't think much of it. In their eyes, this place was far worse than the farms in their own tribes. Chief, there are some people on the mountain who have been following us for a while. Should we go and check? Huang Yi asked the chief of the Mang tribe. No need. The chief of the Mang tribe didn't care and raised his hand. He didn't care about people from small tribes and didn't think they would be a threat to their team. In the nearby forest, Abuli and his people were shocked to see the team passing by the valley. Who are those people? Someone asked. How would I know? Abuli pulled at his animal skin clothes anxiously and wiped the sweat on his forehead. Before they came, Abuli spent 2 days choosing clothes. In the end, he chose a piece of animal skin he exchanged from Yanjiao and asked his wife to sew it into clothes. In the drumming tribe, the best clothing material was the fearsome beast skin they exchanged from Yanjiao last winter. Fearsome beast skin wasn't like wild beast skin and was much more difficult to cut. Abuli's wife found a few more people to help. Abuli, his wife and the shaman of the drumming tribe all wore animal skin clothes and headed to the Flaming River trading point. However, the animal skins that Abuli had chosen at that time were all furs with thick fur and not smooth or short fur. With the current weather, winter had long passed and it was indeed very hot to wear, but Abuli had no choice. After picking and choosing, only these furs caught his eye. Originally, Abuli wanted to wear these fearsome beast skin clothes to the Flaming River feast to show off. From what he knew, many tribes in this area had never seen fearsome beast skin before. But who would have thought that when they were heading towards the Flaming River trading point, they would see a group of people with luxurious equipment passing through the valley. The other party's attire and carriage were so much better than the drumming tribes. Their aura was also much stronger than the other tribes in the area. Compared to them, the drumming tribe's people were nothing. When they saw this team, they didn't even have the thought of robbing them. This must be the legendary powerful tribe from the central region, right? There was always someone better than you. The drumming tribe was still too narrow-minded. Abuli thought about it and took out a vine-woven bag from his back. He opened it layer by layer and took out a few crystal necklaces. He put them all on his neck. These were the backup necklaces he brought with him when he left the tribe. He wanted to give them away as gifts and pretend to be rich, but now it seemed like he should wear them first to boost his courage. This is much better. Abuli looked at the sparkling crystal necklaces and nodded in satisfaction. His confidence had increased by a few levels. The Mang tribe and Eight Limbs tribe who were hurrying on their journey didn't know how traumatized the people who were spying on them were. Night gradually fell and the team found a place to rest. Beside the fire, the chief of the Mang tribe took out the map on the back of the invitation letter. He looked at the 2 moons drawn on the top of the map. That was the time of the feast given by Yanjiao. He looked at the size of the 2 moons and gestured between them. Then he looked up at the sky. The shape of the 2 moons in the night sky was similar to the one drawn on the map. We can make it. This was the conclusion of the Mang tribe's chief. We should be able to reach the Flaming River trading point tomorrow, Huang Yi said. Based on the rough terrain, the distribution of the mountains and the position of the river, they were very close to the destination marked on the map. They should be able to reach it before the time given by Yanjiao. I wonder what kind of food Yanjiao prepared. Did they really prepare a lot of fearsome beast meat? Chu Su looked at the beast roasting over the fire and felt even hungrier. Who knows? A warrior from the Eight Limbs tribe yawned. They regretted coming with the team. Not only was the journey long, if Yanjiao prepared some strange food, would they bite the bullet and eat it or not? They heard that the food in the remote areas was very strange. They wondered how the barbaric Yanjiao would prepare it. Sigh, why think so much? We'll know tomorrow. You're right. Under the night sky, the team gradually quieted down. There was only the crackling of the fire and the snoring of a few mounts. The next day, the team set off again. Just as Huang Yi and the rest expected, when it was close to noon, they saw a flat road that was obviously man-made. There was a stone tablet on the side of the road with the words, Flaming River Trading Point written on it. There was an arrow below the words, pointing in the direction of the road. This is interesting, Chu Su said. Keep going. The chief of the Mang tribe pointed in front of them. There were people looking in their direction. They should be Yanjiao people. The road was wide and sturdy. Even giant beasts could walk on it steadily. They walked along the road. Not long after, someone in the team suddenly exclaimed. Look, what's that? The people in the team looked forward. In their field of vision, there was a tall stone house in the distance, higher than the height of the forest. Because most of the trees in front of them were cut down, there were no obstacles. They could clearly see the gray-white building with its head sticking out. Not long after, a wall appeared in front of them. They didn't care about the wall made of stone, but the painting on the wall made all of them excited. It wasn't that the paintings were scary, but the style and color of the paintings were very eye-catching. The sudden appearance of colors in the green forest attracted a lot of attention. Unlike the walls in other places, Yanjiao's wall was smoother. The protruding parts of the wall were shaved off and the depressions were filled in, so the wall became a good drawing board. The paintings on it were more detailed and had more variations. There were many people in the paintings on the outer walls. Due to the collective stylization of the tribal mindset, most of the paintings of the tribes had one thing in common. When drawing people, the shapes of the figures would omit the beauty of the individual, but at the same time, it would produce and strengthen the overall impact. This was especially obvious when the paintings were for outsiders. People from big tribes like the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe could be said to be experienced and knowledgeable. Ordinary paintings wouldn't surprise them so much, but the paintings on the wall in front of them gave them a different feeling. The dark brown paint painted the land with some people lined up on it. Although the faces of the people in the paintings were basically the same due to the collective stylization, their clothes and weapons were slightly different. There were stone ropes, swords, spears, axes and sticks, and some strange tools, like broken knives, which they had never seen before. The posture of the people lined up on the painting was solemn. Set off by the flame-shaped streamline, there was a specific rhythm and rendering feeling. Because the wall was smoother, there were more places to display the painting skills. The lines of the paintings also changed from hard to soft to thick. Under the full color filling, it looked more vivid. Some of the paintings were decorated with rare golden paint to outline the lines or fill in the blanks. Among the plants in the paintings, there were some painted in gold and purple, but most people who saw them didn't recognize those plants. If it was in other tribes, the paintings with different thicknesses would look awkward and unnatural. But here, because of the combination of dots, lines, and surfaces, there was more beauty. In the smooth and delicate painting, it didn't lose the wildness of the tribal style. Those were only a few groups of paintings. There were more paintings behind. Between every two groups of paintings, there were some red flame-shaped decorative patterns. In the flames, there were obvious double horn patterns, and the flame patterns that connected the groups of paintings looked natural. The flame bodies spiral and arc were combined together, giving people a feeling of flow, and could be smoothly placed between each group of paintings. There were not only paintings of people, but also paintings of ferocious beasts. All kinds of ferocious beasts that had never been seen before were shown on the wall in the primitive tribal style. In addition to the combination of lines and decorative patterns, the impact of colors, and the exaggerated transformation techniques, people who saw it couldn't help but feel a sense of fear at the moment when they saw it at first sight. On the gray-white wall, the combination of large paintings and colors, set off by the surrounding green mountains and clear water, gave people a more obvious visual conflict. It could be said that every person who came here for the first time was deeply impressed by the paintings on the wall. Most of these paintings were made by Xiao Xian. Of course, Xiao Xian could make more detailed and complex paintings, and more vivid, but that would be beyond the acceptable range of this period. Here, the mainstream was this kind of primitive tribal style. If it was a little more than that, it would be called improvement and innovation. But if it was a complete change of style, it would be completely out of the mainstream and acceptable range of this period. Not to mention that people from other tribes couldn't appreciate it, even people from the Yanjiao tribe would feel abrupt when they saw it. They might even think that Xiao Xian's aesthetic was abnormal. The result was just as Xiao Xian expected. People from the Yanjiao tribe were very satisfied with the final result on the wall. In the past few days, people from other tribes who came one after another would stop when they saw these paintings, including the teams from the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe. What kind of tree is this painting? I don't know. What about that? I've never seen it before. And that? Oh, I know that one over there. That's the crop Yanjiao discovered before. What's it called? Cabbage? Yes, that cabbage. We saw Yanjiao planting it when we went to the murderous forest during the winter. The warriors of the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe in the team were pointing at those paintings and discussing. At the front of the team, the chiefs from the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe looked at the tall wall in front of them and the stone tower in the middle of the trading point. They felt very conflicted. This was Yanjiao's new settlement. This was the so-called Flaming River trading point that Yanjiao built. It seemed, should be, different from what they expected. What was that saying again? I'm relieved to know that you're not doing well. Similarly, they were depressed to know that Yanjiao was doing well. How could they not be doing well if they could build a place like this? Chapter 6:15. At the Flaming River trading point, there were Yanjiao warriors in charge of reception. These people would verify the authenticity of the invitations and lead them into the trading point. They would bring them to a designated area to rest. Xiao Xian had already told them about this. They knew which area each tribe was assigned to. Even if they couldn't remember, as long as they remembered the general location, they would be able to see the signs when they arrived. The person who led the Mang tribe and Eight Limbs tribe in was Kun Tu, who was on duty today. He looked at the Mang tribe and Eight Limbs tribe and roughly estimated the number of people. Then, he led them into the trading point. Because there were more teams arriving, the number of guards increased. Those who weren't led in by the Yanjiao and didn't have invitations would be killed by the guards if they tried to force their way in. At times like this, the Yanjiao people wouldn't show any mercy. When they were outside the trading point, the Mang tribe and Eight Limbs tribe could already hear the sounds of people inside the trading point and smell the aroma of food wafting out. Before them, many people who were invited had already arrived. At the entrance of the trading point, if you walked in a little, you would see two large stone trays by the side of the road. On the trays were some roasted food. When the Mang tribe and Eight Limbs tribe passed by, someone happened to be putting food on the trays. Freshly roasted food that was still steaming hot was piled on the trays. The aroma of the food wafted towards the incoming teams. The food on the trays in the trading point is all edible. You can take whatever you want, Kun Tu explained. The Mang tribe and Eight Limbs tribe were hesitant. They hadn't eaten anything on the way here after rushing for so long. Now that they smelled the food, they were hungry too. The food they ate in the morning had already been digested. They could even hear their stomachs moving. It was fine if the trays were filled with other things, but now, all the food on the trays were filled with worms. It was not that they never ate these things, but they thought that they had already left the primitive state of savagery. Other than when they were on a mission or when they were forced to a certain extent, they were more particular about the food they ate. They rarely ate insects, especially for those who had some status in the tribe. Their daily food was usually carefully prepared, but when they came here, the first thing they saw was a large plate of roasted insects. Even though he had mentally prepared himself for this, he was still rather displeased when he actually encountered it. If Yanjiao only planned to use these insects as the main course of the banquet, then they could only laugh at Yanjiao and turn around to leave. They did not want to stay for a moment longer because it was not worth it. I didn't come all the way here to eat worms with you. Those insects were roasted red, and it was unknown what was sprinkled on them, but they were still insects, and they were even longer than half an arm. Chu Su looked at the pile of roasted insects on the trays. After thinking for a while, he decided to grab one as he passed by. It was rare for him to come to Yanjiao, so he had to try something new to make this trip worthwhile. Like Chu Su, a few other young men also grabbed some insects from the trays. Only the leader of the group still had a straight face, as if he did not care about the insects. Behind the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, not long after the two tribes entered, the people of the drumming tribe came over slowly. Although they also looked overly cautious, compared to the last time they came here, they were much better. The guards at the entrance also recognized Abuli, but they still checked the invitation letter Abuli took out before bringing them into the trading area. The dazzling crystal necklace on Abuli's neck was indeed very eye-catching. Everyone who saw it looked at him a few times. Feeling the gazes around him, Abuli moved his neck uncomfortably, then straightened his back. This feeling of being stared at was pretty good. When they passed by the two large trays, the drumming tribesmen, who were originally restrained, all stared at the trays. What was there to care about when there was food? Eating was the most important thing. To them, having food was a good thing. The type of food, whether it tasted good or not, was secondary. Why would they care about these things when they were hungry most of the time? As a tribe that often lacked food and starvation was normal, the drumming tribesmen had no qualms about eating insects. They ate live insects all the time, not to mention these roasted insects. Eat! Abuli took the lead and grabbed a bug from the large tray. The people behind him also rushed over and reached their hands towards the tray. Other than their desire for food, the people of the drumming tribe were also very interested in the roasted worms on the huge tray. They had never seen these worms before, not even a single one of them. The worm in Abuli's hand was almost as long as his arm. It had 4 limbs full of short thorns and a ferocious face. It opened its sharp jaws, and even after being roasted to a crisp, its terrifying appearance did not diminish much. However, this did not affect Abuli's appetite at all. The insect's strong hind legs could even be sucked out half of the liquid meat. Abuli didn't know if it was just his imagination, but he felt that the meat on these insects tasted much better than the insects they usually caught in the forest. It was as if there was a warm current flowing through his body, relieving his tiredness. It was not comparable to fearsome beast meat, but it was better than what they usually ate. Delicious! It smells good too. After the first bite, the drumming tribesmen ran over to take more. After taking 2 more, they used their armpits to pick up more. As a result, when the drumming tribesmen passed by, the small mountain of roasted insects on the tray was reduced by half. As he followed the Yanjiao warrior who led the way, Abuli chewed on the insects. He thought to himself that when he left after the banquet, he would exchange some of these insects with the Yanjiao. Insects should be cheaper than beast meat. He should be able to exchange a crystal of the same size for quite a few insects. The Yanjiao people were not stingy with these insects. In fact, these insects were all swatted down by the guards in the fields with giant fly swatters. After spring came and flowers bloomed, the flourishing crops in the fields attracted many flying insects. Especially recently, when the crops in the fields grew better, they attracted even more flying insects. Every day, the flying insects that were swatted down by the warriors could pile up into a small mountain. The green ducks were fattened up by the feeding, and recently, even the female ducks had started laying eggs. The flaming horn tribesmen had eaten these insects before, and they felt that it was a good dish. They wouldn't embarrass themselves if they sold them in the trading point. Xiao Xian even joked, this can be considered a seasonal dish. After eating one insect, Abuli looked around and realized that compared to the last time he was here, the trading point had changed quite a bit. The original wooden buildings had been replaced with stone houses, and they looked sturdier and taller. Many of the houses had been painted with colors, and the stone tablets by the roadside were carved into the shape of ferocious beasts. They stood there, adding a sense of fierceness to the trading point. The Ji tribe was arranged to be near other smaller tribes in the Little Flaming River area. They were slightly further away from the center of the trading point. Even if they were arranged to be near the center of the trading point, they would not be willing. That place was filled with more powerful tribes, and they would feel uncomfortable there. Just like the fire seed, they would not be able to sit or stand still. Yanjiao's arrangement was exactly what they wanted. When can we start eating? No, when will the banquet start? It's already time. Abuli pointed at the 2 moons drawn on the invitation letter and asked the Yanjiao warrior who led them here. It's either tomorrow or the day after, because there are still tribes that have not arrived yet. The shaman and the chief said to wait a little longer, and they will inform you when the time comes, the Yanjiao warrior said. So slow. Abuli complained about the tribes that dragged on, but when he thought about how they didn't have to worry about food here, his gloominess disappeared. He thought of something, then pointed at the surroundings and asked, will the banquet be held here? Of course not. The Yanjiao warrior who led them here grinned, then pointed at the center of the trading point. The banquet will be held at the Flaming River Castle. Abuli looked over from the window. The tall stone building they saw outside the trading point should be the so-called Flaming River Castle. It wasn't finished last winter, and now it was complete. He estimated the size of the Flaming River Castle in his mind and realized that it was about the same size as the Ji tribe's place. He was too nervous the last time he came here, so he didn't take a closer look. Now that he thought about it, he realized this fact. On the roof of the tallest building in the Flaming River Castle, there was a huge flag with 2 flaming horns on it. The flag fluttered in the wind. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.